Good morning, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, January 22nd. It is 9 a.m. We are at the Bay Oaks Recreation Center. All town council members are present, town manager, town attorney, town clerk. We please rise for the invocation. Pastor John Antonucci.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day to just celebrate life here in Southwest Florida. Father, I pray for this incredible lead council and the leadership that they display on the beach, that you would continually give them the wisdom and the direction that they need to make every decision that will be a blessing to the people of Fort Myers Beach. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Next, we have the approval of the final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
Mr. Mayor, we would ask on the consent agenda that we pull items E, or D and E, just for some clarification.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I could also ask that, again, for clarification purposes, items A, B, C, and F be pulled as well.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not a reflection of their controversy. Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
You got a motion by Counselor King,
Second.
second by Counselor Woodson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have, what was the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, public comment.
I have nobody signed up.
Is there anyone that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Presentation. Mr. Caldwell, Matt Caldwell, the Lee County Property Appraiser.
Well, thank you all. Oh, let me see. Is that on? There we go.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you all for giving me a few moments today, and thank you very much for agreeing your staff to work with us. So here to announce that next week we are going to be here on the island specifically as we have turned the calendar and we need to start identifying what properties are ready to come back on the tax roll after a year, hopefully, of successful renovation, particularly for a number of the residential properties. And so we're going to be doing two things. First of all, we are going to have 3 or 4 of our field staff set up here, staying on the island over the course of several days, specifically looking at the commercial, the Gulf Front, the complex properties. But then we're also working with your team, going to set up here at headquarters some of our staff to receive information from homeowners. That's really the big part of the announcement, is to make sure that homeowners know they have an opportunity. If for whatever reason they've been unable to come downtown, they have specific questions of our office about how the process will continue to work, and especially not only making sure that we have an accurate assessment of the physical condition of their property, but also answering questions about homestead in particular. We continue to get those. It's understandable if your house or condo or whatnot is still uninhabitable, concerns about losing their homestead benefit over time. And so we'll have specifically homestead staff here on site at least Monday, Tuesday. We'll see how the traffic goes, maybe stay for a day or two longer, depending on how long y'all want to host us for. But try to be available as best we can here on the island and get a better understanding of what's the current state of things. And available for any questions you guys have.
Yes, ma'am.
Matt, first of all, thank you. That's extremely helpful. There are a lot of folks who have questions. There's not only homeowners, but we just had a meeting last week with the condo associations and the board presidents, et cetera, and they have some questions as well. So just if I could ask the town manager and Matt together, do we know exactly where and when and how folks would find Matt's people?
It'll be at the town hall in the main trailer there. We'll set up stations for where we are now.
Where we are now. okay.
Correct.
And so and what are the hours, Matt? Do we know yet?
I mean, I think just normal operating hours, that's the expectation we have.
So
Probably basically 8:30 to 4:30 or 8:30 to 5:30. We're there to 5:30, so.
So at a minimum, it'll be this Monday and Tuesday for sure, and it may be extended?
Yeah, just depending on the traffic level and again, how long y'all want to be host for us. But that's our intention.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said this Monday, not today.
Not today, next Monday, the 29th, and through that week. And then particularly for the commercial property owners in complex real estate, as I said, we're going to have 3 or 4 of our field staff who are going to stay here on the island for several days. And so if they want to reach out proactively to our office, if they have specific issues they want us to come take a look at or get a handle on for the tax record, this is the ideal time to do it.
Okay. And Andy, we'll be up in Tallahassee, so do we have a point of contact for Matt and his staff?
Yeah, I'll use Amy will be the point of contact.
Okay, just so you're reaching out to the right people in case you can't get a hold of us.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Matt?
So I do have a specific question. I remember when you were here last year and you were talking about if at the first of the year you're not able to be in your home or something like that, but, what if you get in like in April or May? Is there any kind of prorated type thing, or how does that work, or do you have to fill out special forms? Because I know I got something in the mail that I haven't done yet, but.
Sure. So the key date is always January 1st. That's the date upon which we evaluate the real estate for the tax roll. So whatever the condition was on that day, regardless of what happens throughout the rest of the year, that's going to control the situation. And it's really a situation, as we talk about what we find in most of the real estate here after the hurricane, we're going to have to play it by ear and see what it looks like and what the reality is. So, for example, anybody, we gave a wide benefit of the doubt, just as a practical matter, immediately after the hurricane. If you applied for a refund, if you said you weren't uninhabitable, we're gonna go with that. I mean, you send us pictures. Every year that goes by, we're naturally gonna have to take a deeper look at it and see what is the situation, what are the circumstances, what are the facts, because we will, in these early days, absolutely mark you down to uninhabitable, and basically you're only going to be taxed then on the land and prorated for a condo situation. If we get 2-3 years into this, then we have to have a practical assessment of whether what you have is just uninhabitable or what you really own is land with a building that needs to be depreciated, and we need to move forward on that basis. And it gets a little more, going to take a little more massaging and interaction when it is a homesteaded property and figuring out what really your intention is. The biggest thing to keep in mind is under the current state of the law, you have 3 years to not live somewhere and still effectively the way we're reviewing it is this falls under the portability guidelines, because you're not living there, but you're able to keep your homestead essentially as long as you make clear to us that that's your intention and you haven't moved somewhere else on a permanent basis in terms of everything else about your life. So all those are going to have to go play into each other, right? Like if we conclude that this really, really is your homestead, but it's still uninhabitable, and we get into year 3, we're going to have some real good conversations about what that looks like going forward. But it's so fact specific and so widespread. I mean, as I talked about last year, the statutes really, nobody can envision the scale and size of what we're trying to deal with on a day-to-day here.
Thank
you. Yeah, absolutely.
Just one last thing, because a lot of folks watched certainly the beginnings of our meeting, and many survived the whole meeting, but I wanted to make sure, Andy, the office hours for the town are, is it 8:30 to 4:30?
We're 7:30 to 5:30 right now, but however they want to set up, it's
Yeah,
up
I mean,
to them. I'm not dictating.
But are
this.
you comfortable with that?
I'd say 8:30 to 4:30 is perfect.
Because I know people are trying to strategically avoid traffic, so 8:30 to 4:30 on
Yeah.
Monday, the 29th, and Tuesday, the 30th. The Lee County appraisers staff will be available to answer any questions that folks either in residence, commercial properties, or condos have with your agency.
Correct.
Excellent. That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions for Matt?
I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay warm.
Need some heat.
Nice. see that this is FDOT here yet by chance? Is anyone here from FDOT? All right, we'll save that till the end then. Next is local achievements and recognitions. Counselor Woodson?
Well, once again, the Women's Club hit it out of the park with the Putt and Pub. There were so many people on the island, and it was so fun to see. I don't even know, do we know yet how much they raised for
I haven't
anything?
seen that.
I haven't heard anything, but it was fantastic. It was a fantastic event, and it was another one of those good feelings, and we're coming back, and the shrimp parade or Shrimp Fest was just announced for March 9th and 10th. So again, another staple icon that's coming back to our community. So I'm just really excited about it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Earl?
I would second Councilor Woodson's recognition of the Putt Pub and Crawl. Dawn Thomas, the president of the Women's Club and a fearless leader, did a great job. The sponsors were wonderful. The volunteers were wonderful, and just a great event that benefited so many worthy causes on the island. I'd like to thank the mayor for organizing the meeting with the condo presidents and condo board members last week. I thought that was excellent. I want to recognize the thankless service of the presidents and the condo board members. This is a very, very difficult time. These are all volunteers. They are going through a really, really challenging experience, particularly with their insurance companies, many of whom have not been working in good faith. But I'm so thankful for the perseverance of our condo boards. Again, it seems like in my experience, the ones that John and I both had the privilege of serving as a condo board member, it's tough. And I think there's never enough communication. And so those folks who are over communicating are doing well, and getting everybody involved in your condo building, not just your fellow board members, but everybody in that building. There's subcommittees, everybody's got connections, gifts, talents, work histories that could be helpful. And it seems like those boards that are utilizing everyone that could help in any capacity and communicating well seem to be doing well, and it's certainly been helpful. But I just want to thank everybody who's currently serving on the condo board. I also want to, I did this last week, but I'm going to continue to do it just for public information. I just wanted to recognize the residents and our visitors who are utilizing the pedestrian overpass in front of Margaritaville. There's really no reason to cross the street. As a pedestrian, you should always, if you can, there are elevators, there's stairs, it's a cool walkover, it's a beautiful view, and you really allow your friends and neighbors to continue to move the traffic flow. If they've got a doctor's appointment or a job interview, or if they're trying to get to the airport, just by taking an extra minute or two to go over the pedestrian overpass, as opposed to stopping traffic and walking across that crosswalk, just if you can, think of your fellow citizens and try to encourage folks to use that pedestrian overpass. And later I'll be asking the town manager as to how we're doing on these off-duty police officers, so we can get somebody at these key locations to keep that traffic flowing as well. So, but again, just wanted to thank everybody who's using that pedestrian overpass. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor King?
My colleagues have already touched on it, and I'm sure you will as well, Mayor. So I'll just remind everybody about a day that does not need any, special recognition, but it is a big day. Today is the day before National King Day. So put it all on your calendars. I take a extra large bourbon.
You can tell he's been on vacation.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
John, I tell you.
I'm sure you will.
Vacation mode still.
Well, you notice he didn't specify his bourbon of choice, so that's a dangerous, dangerous thing you just left open. I just in the sake of time, I won't go into everything. Everything's been touched on by my colleagues. I second, third, or fourth, whatever I am in line of everyone that worked very hard this weekend. So with that, we'll go on to advisory committees, items, reports, and appointments. Anyone here, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up. There is a opening on the MRF committee for a council liaison. If my colleagues are okay with it, I'd be willing to submit my name for that.
I do not have any objection. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
I have no objection, John, but I just want to make sure whoever fills that vacancy has at least one advisory committee opportunity at their disposal. So I just collectively, let's think about that. If somebody wants to, I've got two, if somebody wants to give up one, just so, because I think it's a good part of the council experience to be a liaison. So I've got no problem with you serving there. I just think it would be nice to make sure that new person has, does Bill have any other ones aside from Murph? Is that?
Well, he had the resilient, well, not an advisory council. He had Murph for the advisory, but then he had Resilient Lee,
Yeah.
which on the backup on that.
I think that's getting to end pretty
And
soon.
then on
isn't
board
it?
cap. Who is Anchorage?
I do
You do
Anchorage
Anchorage.
and Cell Cab. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm happy to yield one of those. I just didn't know, John, you have audit, is that right?
Audit,
Yeah.
and we met once, and we're meeting again next week.
Well, maybe we just see who that person is and see where their interest is.
And then who
we
has
can-
safety?
I do.
believe
Oh,
Dan
you have
does,
safety.
yeah.
Okay.
But I certainly have no objection.
No, I have no objection
Madam
whatsoever.
Clerk?
Would you like to address this when we have that new person and we can,
Is there a meeting between now and then with that committee? There's not.
which committee?
With Murph.
No, there shouldn't be.
So we'll have our next meeting before Murph. Second Wednesday, so it's next month. Okay.
Oh, next.
Well, I'm okay, if you're okay, Counselor King, waiting until
Sure.
that, and then, try to spread some of this out a little bit potentially, depending on who comes on at the next meeting. Approval of the minutes. We have draft council minutes from January 8th, the council special meeting with FMB condo boards from January 11th, and the council with LPA planning minutes from January 11th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A motion by Counselor King. I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda is now the items removed from consent agenda. So we will start with item A. Jim, you pulled that? Go ahead.
I just a question. This is regarding the polling location. I think it's such a important public issue. I just wanted to make sure that the town manager had an opportunity to explain that I'm guessing that we're contracting with the Lee County Supervisor of Elections to have the polling or the voting location at the new town hall, new temporary town hall building behind or as part of Bay Oaks and behind the library. So I just want to make sure that's indeed the case, but I also wanted to make sure, does this preclude us from having a second location on the island should something materialize in the next few months?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have not had those conversations. He just wanted to make sure he had something in line going forward. I would imagine that does not preclude having a second location, but he wanted to make sure he had a general, he liked that location of the new trailers strictly because the vast parking area we had. There was more parking available there. It was a good location, easy in and out, that type of thing. He walked through with one of his staff members and felt that particular part of the town hall trailer, the front part, the quad we call it, would be perfect for what they needed to do.
And I think that's great. It's a great location. I just want to, the supervisor of elections came to us as a council a couple of years ago and originally proposed reducing the number of locations from 3 to 1. And then I'd asked him if he would consider 2, one on the south end, one on the north end. And to his credit, he was very gracious about it, and he did. I just want to make sure that should we have an opportunity to have a location on the south end, that we maintain that opportunity, because it is a presidential cycle. And in the past on this island, we've had some pretty good lines at the polling stations, and it's a challenge for folks. So just want to have folks keep in mind that let's continue to keep the options open for a location on the south end as well, because of traffic issues. And again, the turnout is usually very strong on a presidential cycle. So just didn't want to see people waiting in lines.
Right. We will. And in addition to that, Mayor, if I may, Amy got some information, but those 3 dates that we have some conflicting schedules on that date. So Amy, if you would address that, please.
The polling location takes 3 days total. They deliver the machines, they have the voting on Tuesdays, and they pick up all the machines on Wednesdays. So we have 3 council meetings, Monday, March 18th, Monday, August 19th, and Monday, November 4th, that we need to either move the location of the meeting, maybe we could work with Jeff and have them here, or move the date of the meeting because they conflict with this polling.
I think if we could just move back into here for those, it'd be easier than moving the dates, as
Okay.
long as we're not going to hurt Jeff and
Okay.
his staff too much.
Okay, so just to
Everybody- okay.
reiterate, it's March 18th, August 19th, and November 4th will be here instead of in the new chambers room.
Say those dates one more time.
March 18th, August 19th, and November 4th.
And we'll make sure to get that information out again before each of those meetings in plenty of time. All right. Anything else with that, Jim?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's all.
Is there a motion to approve consent agenda item A, Estero Island Polling Precinct?
So moved.
Motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt,
Second.
a second by Counselor King. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the Special Magistrate Services, item B. Jim?
Yes, I thought, since the proposed candidate for the special magistrate was kind enough to attend this morning, I thought we would have Monica Schmucker come up to the microphone and just talk a little bit about her qualifications and interest in serving. If that's okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, I think it's great. Come on up, Monica.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning. I thought I would come in to see if anybody had any
Monica,
questions.
make sure
of-
you state your name.
Oh, yes, my name is Monica Schmucker, sorry. Just to see if anybody had any questions of me for the magistrate position, or the special magistrate position. Brief background about me, I am a native Floridian, born and raised in Miami. I went to college at Florida International University. I was a teacher and a college instructor for some time before I went to law school at Notre Dame, and I practiced in Indiana after law school. I was a law clerk, or I was a clerk for a judge in the LaPorte Superior Court, and I also was a deputy attorney general enforcing consumer protection laws in Indiana. I moved here to Florida in 2016. I have been in Fort Myers Beach ever since, and to clarify, I am on San Carlos Island, but it's Fort Myers Beach to me. I've been extremely active in the Fort Myers Beach community. Since then, having served on the board of the Fort Myers Beach Women's Club, I am past president of the Fort Myers Beach Women's Club. I've been involved with Friends of Lovers Key in some capacity over the years, as well as I'm an active member of the PTO in Fort Myers Beach Elementary. My kids go here to Fort Myers Beach Elementary, and I was very active in the rebuild of the school. I was on the ad hoc committee and helped negotiate the phased rebuild plan. So I'm very much involved here and very committed to the Fort Myers Beach community. And I don't know if you have any other questions of me, but I'm currently an arbitrator and a mediator. So I also do alternative dispute resolution as well as litigation. Those are my qualifications for those who don't know me. And if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer.
Questions for Monica?
Well, I think you cut yourself short a little bit. You're also running for the school board
Yes.
of Lee County.
Yes, that too.
So-
Right. Right.
Don't like to stay busy, huh?
Mr. Mayor, I would say that I think the town of Fort Myers Beach is very fortunate to have Monica Schmucker available to be our special magistrate, and I would move approval of consent agenda item B, special magistrate services.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, a second by Counselor King. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monica.
Item C, special event Saturday services at Bayside Park. Jim?
I just, again, the folks that had made this request are here this morning, and I thought it would be nice to hear from them and also hear what they have in mind for Bayside Park. Pastor John Antonici is here from the Faith Center. If you wanted to come up, John, and say a few words. And his wife, Pam.
Good morning, John Antonucci and Pam Antonucci. And we've been in ministry for 20 years in Fort Myers, and probably about 6 years ago, we just felt an impression to come down to Fort Myers Beach and start a work on the island on Saturdays. We knew there were churches down here on Sunday mornings, but we really felt a drawing and a calling to come down here. And after Ian hit, it was evident that a lot of the churches that were here lost their places of worship, time to share the Word of God, fellowship with one another. And at that time, a door opened at the Mound House in September. And we went into the Mound House. We've been in the meeting there weekly from 4:30 to 5:30, and just an hour to inspire people, encourage people, be a blessing to the people in a spiritual context, but also to help people in this region. We've helped people through the school. I know my wife has done many things with the teachers to bless them, involved in the backpack outreaches and the outreaches that have been done through Beach Talk Radio. Our whole purpose of coming down here is just to be a support and to be an encouragement. And we decided on Christmas Eve, which was the Saturday, to ask, and you all were so gracious to allow us to rent the Bayside Park on that Saturday. And it was just an incredible hour that we had down there, beautiful on the waterfront, and people were milling around town, and people came over and sat on the benches and just listened as we had our, just at that time we had some songs that were sung from a choir from an event we did in our main church. And normally I just come in and share from the Bible for about 40 minutes, and we have time to just, encourage one another there. So what we're asking of the council, because we're on the Mound House, which is off the beaten path and the parking is difficult, is to really be downtown where the people are, and to have an opportunity to come in on a weekly basis and just spend an hour down there at the park. And I know you have someone in Times Square, I've heard, that's been a little disruptive. That's not our method. Our method is to encourage people and to be a support to people, not to berate people or to, really make people feel uncomfortable. We want people to feel comfortable so that they can come out and be a part of what we believe that God wants to do in touching them. And, we pray for you all. We pray for the people of Fort Myers Beach. We're believing that God will continually strengthen you to be able to rebuild and recover from the devastation that took place here. And we're looking to be here, every Saturday somewhere, but we'd like to be there on a month-to-month basis. So that's what we'd like to do. And if you have any questions or any areas that you want me to address, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Just to be clear, if this consent item is approved, the services would begin the first Saturday of February, is that correct?
Correct.
And what time would they start?
4:30, and we usually wrap up at 5:30.
And this would be at Bayside Park.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the pastor?
It's not really a question. I have to be honest with you, and when I read this, it hit me just a little bit wrong, because one of my big concerns is our friend at Times Square. I think it could be even more disruptive to have it at Bayside Park and to have him there. And now that Nervous Nellies has opened, it is going to be much busier there. There's no doubt about that. But I'm really concerned about the disruptive nature of what can happen with our megaphone man, and it's such a prime location. I don't know. It just gnaws at me a little bit with the concern. I am not against any kind of services or anything else, but I'm just wondering if there's a better place at the north end or in Times Square. And it's also the north end. So people will not, more than likely, I shouldn't say that, but more than likely it's going to be very difficult during season for people to get all the way to the north end for a 4:30 service. If there was something a little bit more central, I wish Newton Park was available, because I think that would be a beautiful location. It's just some gnawing concerns I want to bring up.
I would say, Councilor Woodson, your points are well taken. If you look at the request, it's just for February of 2024. My suggestion would be maybe we kind of treat this as a pilot project and see if it works, see if we have any issues. And I think Pastor is also curious to see if it works or not. So
Sure.
maybe we
Yeah.
just use this as a pilot program for this month, and then we'll reassess after the month and see how things go. That's okay?
I'm totally open to that. I just wanted to state my concerns because I just don't want it to turn into a free-for-all for you, for the people that are there to worship, and just for our, the town there to have it get out of hand.
I understand.
Yeah, let me just say this as well. The services that we're having now, a lot of people picture, worship, music. It's pretty much we're just coming in and I'm just sharing for like maybe 40 minutes. I'm teaching, from the Bible, teaching inspiring sermons, talking to people. There is no music really at this point. It's just more connecting with the people, seeing if they need prayer, if they need encouragement, if they need help in any way. We've helped a couple of families down here that were in need financially. So we're looking to give. So I don't know. I've never, other than what I've seen on the news and heard about this gentleman in Times Square, I don't know if any of you have addressed him. I'm available if you need my assistance in speaking to him or going down there. I mean, I'd be more than happy to do that. That's not really how you present the gospel, how you present the message of faith, hope, and encouragement to people, from what I've heard. So,
I don't think that's his mission.
it's not his mission. So he's looking to do something to disrupt, and we're looking to do something to help. And that's how we differentiate ourselves.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of item C, special event Saturday services at Bayside Park just for the month of February for a pilot program.
We got a motion. Is there a second? Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Councilor King. Any other discussion? Just one thing I want to maybe throw out there.
Sure.
Due to inclement weather, is there a chance we could offer up this facility? Should there be, just thinking, we've had really crazy weather.
Yeah, if the weather's bad, we wouldn't go. We would cancel that
You would
day.
just cancel.
Yeah, I mean, at that point.
Okay.
It would be too hard to let people know where
Move it
we're
around.
going.
Okay, just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
All
appreciate
right.
that.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item D, the LAP agreement. Nancy, you want me to read any of this, or are you going to handle it?
Whatever you want.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is basically the town is getting a $8 million grant from the Florida Department of Emergency Management Services. This is a LAP grant agreement. After the time that the agenda was published, staff was getting ready to actually receive this and going through the details that were associated with that. And we ran across some ambiguity in the state agreement that was given to us. On Friday, we talked to the state and they agreed with our interpretation that it is a one-time lump sum, $8 million to the town. So on Saturday night, I got some clarifying language from the department's attorney, and I would just be asking for, subject to legal sign-off, to allow me to amend the agreement that's in your packet, just to clarify that it is a one-time advance payment.
Any questions for Nancy? No? I will make a motion to approve the LAP grant agreement, allowing for legal sign-off for final wording.
I'll second.
A motion by Mayor Aller, seconded by Councilor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Item E. Nancy?
So item E, now that we have some money, we would like to go ahead and use that for the sand truck haul project. Chad is here if you want to talk about the details of that particular project. This is on an expedited path. And for that reason, the resolution that's before you is not only requesting the acceptance of EarthTech Enterprises as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, we're also asking you to approve an agreement with them in the amount of their bid of $2.698 million. Generally, this would come to you in a two-step process. First would be the award of a bid, followed at the next meeting with the approval of the contract. Again, because this is on an expedited basis, we are asking for your approval of both at this one meeting. The vendor's attorney or CEO, they haven't really reviewed the contract, so for that reason, it is subject to legal sign-off. Should there be any substantive changes, that contract would be brought back to you. But usually it's just legal type, minor changes that need to be made. So that is why it's subject to legal sign-off. Also, because we are on an expedited path for this, we would like to amend a resolution that's in your packet. And the purpose for amending it is to go ahead and authorize that an adjustment be made to your fiscal year 2024 budget, so that these budgeted funds can be spent to pay for this agreement. Again, because we're trying to really fast track this, if we didn't put that in the resolution, we would have to come back to you again. So we are basically accomplishing three things with one resolution. And the clerk's indicated I need to go ahead and read the resolution for you. The title, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers accepting Earth Tech Enterprises, Inc. as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder to ITB 24-02EN Estero Island Beach Sand Truck Haul Project, approving an agreement between the town and Earth Tech Enterprises for beach sand work in the amount of $2,698,000, authorizing the town manager to execute an agreement subject to legal sign-off, adjusting fiscal year 2024 budget to expend budgeted funds on behalf of the town for this agreement, and providing an effective date. And staff is here if you'd like more details about that project.
Yeah, Nancy, just when you do this, can you add the word beach after Fort Myers?
Yes,
I don't know if,
yes, sorry. Well,
Chet-
definitely, big difference.
Chad, if you would, if you could just explain to everybody listening or watching out there the need for the expedited resolution, as well as what the truck haul, I know you've covered it several times, but in case where someone missed it, just go over why we have to expedite it and what exactly it's being used for.
Yes, sir. Chad Schutz, environmental staff for the record. Good morning, everyone. So the reason for expediting this is we're up against a hard stop with shorebird nesting season coming. February 15th is the start of the season. We may be able to work a little bit longer down in the from the 8,000 block all the way to the 6,000 block is where we have historical nesting. We may be able to work a little bit longer past that, but not much. So we have quite a bit of sand to get onto Big Carlos Pass Beach, as well as scours in the 5,000, 6,000 block. And also, if you recall, FEMA didn't fund the berm in an area of the 7,000 and 8,000 blocks, so we'll be connecting that berm with some of the sand.
Okay.
And if y'all have any technical questions and want to take advantage of Mr. Paul from Coastal Engineering Consultants to take advantage of his knowledge, he's here as well.
Any questions for Chad or for Mike?
I can never resist when Mike is here. Mike, you want to just kind of come in and just talk a little bit about how the sand, Chad touched on it, but how the sand will be used in conjunction with the emergency berm, and then how that will transition nicely into the beach renourishment, which is the pumped-in sand from the Gulf of Mexico. I always like to hear you kind of give us a little thumbnail sketch.
Good morning. For the record, Michael Poff, Coastal Engineering. So yes, Jim, you've said it beautifully. So the emergency berm is done. FEMA did not approve it in all of the areas, so the money from FDEM that you just approved will be used to finish the berm on those properties who signed their construction easements and granted permission to the town through that process. The main one is on the 7,000 block. That did not get approved by FEMA because of conditions, had to do with the pre-storm conditions of the beach. We also have many scour holes, as you're very aware, on the beach that are outside of the beach project pumping limits. And so this DEM grant can be used to fill all those scour holes. Then we have public accesses that are all the public right-of-ways to the beach. We're going to fill those to level them out. And at 9, I believe it's 9, 8 or 9 specific public accesses that have the emergency berm in place, we're going to add additional sand that will be at a much gentler slope to try to achieve a ADA, American with Disabilities Act, complementary grade to make it easier to get over the emergency berm at those 9 highly used locations. And then that will blend into the pumping of the sand. That's the big project. Obviously, 2 weeks ago at this meeting, we collectively agreed to postpone that project. We are revamping all those bid documents. We'll have those ready for staff to review in the next week or two. We'll put that back out on the street. The truck haul will begin as soon as we possibly can. We'll be contacting Earth Tech today to arrange the pre-construction meeting with the goal of trying to start sand trucking right around February 1st, as my hope, so that we can get the south end done. As Chad mentioned, we have the shorebird season. Get all that sand in place and then work the accesses and the other places around the island between now and, say, June 1st, maybe even sooner. If the Earth Tech can get done even sooner, that'll be fantastic. And then the goal for the dredging project would be to begin somewhere around June 1st. So we want to bid that in February and come back to you hopefully in March with some hopefully very competitive bids to line things up to begin somewhere around June 1st and then do the 900,000 some yards through the dredging project.
That's great, Mike. Just for folks who are watching, if they have an interest or they're on the Gulf and they, whether it be residential or commercial, and they know they've got a challenge in their area, do they just assume you're going to come? Is there a way for them to petition you for some additional sand, or how does it work procedurally? I know you guys have a specific plan. If you're not part of that plan, do folks have the ability to sort of draw something to your attention to petition to be part of the plan, or how would it work if somebody who's watching this wanted to make sure that they were part of this trucking phase before the actual dredging occurs?
So town staff sent requests for easements to all the property owners. They've sent it multiple times. As you're very well aware, some people refused to sign the easements. Many people, after Adalia came through and saw the benefit of the berm, contacted town staff and said, we want to sign up. So that's the best thing to do, is to contact Chad and say, we've changed our mind, we want to be in the program. The only time we really can't put them in the program is if during the major dredging project, if we have passed that section with the pumping of the sand and somebody says, oh, well, can you back up please and fill my lot? That's really difficult and very expensive for a dredger to do that. So we have time now with the delay of the dredging. We have a few more weeks before the final plans will be bid. So I plead everybody who is on the fence about signing your easements, sign them, get them into town staff, and we can add them into the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can just add real quick, Chad Schutz again. The north end is known as the previously engineered beach. That's also the Category G public assistance funding we're getting from FEMA. We are working with FEMA to reversion that, and that, if successful, could be a separate truck haul project that may come to fruition, provided everything comes together with FEMA. But the reason why I mention that is this particular $8 million from FDEM specifically excludes the north end from being a part of the project.
Thanks,
So-
Chad. I'm glad you mentioned. I'm sorry, Karen, but glad you mentioned that. So the north end folks, like the Best Western, they still could receive some help, but it would be through a separate
Project.
project,
Separate set of money. FDEM cannot duplicate benefits that we're getting from
Gotcha.
FEMA.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
So, Chad, could you just be more specific, just so people understand where the 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000 block are?
Sure. So the 5,000 block and the 6,000 block. So 6,000 block is the open beach. Some old timers call it Holiday Inn Beach. We have from Flamingo access all the way to the Wyndham is the 6,000 block. Just north of there is the 5,000 block, where you see some more mature dune vegetation that goes around to almost to the Sandpiper, more or less. So that would be the 5,000 block scours that, as Michael said, that we're not, we're trying to add sand with this truck haul project in areas that are not included in our renourishment project. So our renourishment project is from Lanark, ends at Lanark on the south end. So it'd be the scours and beach areas that need sand south of Lanark. And then we have the 8,000 block is Big Carlos Pass Beach. And obviously from 6,000 to the 8,000 is the CWA in that area as well. That's where the berm will be connected. Sorry, it's a
No,
little.
that's great. I just wanted to have everybody kind of be able to picture it.
Yep.
Of where those streets, where it starts and ends kind of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we have received some people commenting on the north end, and I understand it comes category G, and that's FEMA. Do you have any rough idea when we'll, I know it's a.
We're gonna, I've spoken with Michael, and we're gonna start putting plans together as soon as possible so that we're ready to go as soon as we get a green light on funding.
But there's no really.
It's really tough to
Forecast.
say. It's in the reversioning process. We've given our technical letters and requests to our public assistance folks, as well as Michael working his contacts at FEMA on the subject matter expert over there on both ends. So we've been very successful in the past, and it's happened in FEMA terms very quickly. But in terms of giving dates, I wouldn't want to set expectations too high. We're hoping within the next 30 to 60 days
Okay.
before hurricane season.
All right. Thanks, Chad. Any other questions for Chad?
I'll move resolution number 24-17, Estero Island Beach Sand Truck Haul Project,
That's as amended.
as amended.
Second.
Thank you.
A motion by Counselor King, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Agenda item F, Resolution 2416, support of rebuild of FMB Pier. Jim?
I just pulled this because I wanted to have a discussion with my colleagues, and I will yield to Karen because she's been taking the lead on this pier issue, and I think her and the FMB organization has done a great job of really bringing forth a bold and fascinating and exciting vision for the pier. The one thing, the piece of this puzzle that I think we may want to talk about adding on to. Now, let me just premise this by saying I think the pier is important enough as an economic development driver that Lee County would certainly see it in the public interest in funding a bigger and bolder pier. But I also know there's a lot of competition for resources in Lee County. And I thought maybe we ought to discuss briefly a suggested funding opportunity that might enhance our ability to get this through and get the support of the Lee County Commissioners. I talked with Commissioner Sandelli at length, and he certainly was, he didn't give me any specificity, but he did say that certainly having a request with a funding strategy would be much stronger than just making the request in general.
Do you have any suggestions for that funding strategy?
Well, Karen, do you want me to start?
Yeah, I mean, just give a little background here. So hopefully a lot of people in the community, and I know a lot in the community, have seen the Let's Go FMB presentation that Alan Shinosky did about, just where our pier was and then destroyed, and then what is happening in the entire state of Florida and across the country, but we're really focused on Florida. And if we rebuild the pier exactly the same way as it was, which is truly all that FEMA will pay for, we will have the smallest pier in the entire state of Florida. So what we were proposing from Let's Go FMB standpoint is bigger and better, and we based it all on our community and tourism and how many people come to enjoy that pier, and it's just too small. But again, FEMA will only pay for the exact rebuild of what was there. So there comes, when we met with Dave Horner and some of the staff in Lee County, their it's not that they're against building a bigger and better pier, but they need rationale and reason. So they wanted to hear it supported by the community and the council of Fort Myers Beach. And then Jim and I spoke about what Ray had told him, or Commissioner Sandelli had told him about, you know, if there's a funding strategy and if there's some support from that, that would be a better feather in our cap to raise this issue to them. So they are in the bid process right now, Lee County is, and I think the timing is perfect as we move to support this. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the funding strategy. I know we talked briefly, but
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm thinking about is in essence a user fee, if you will. It's not an exact science, but if we were to level the parking fees at Lynn Hall Park and Bowditch Park to be the same as what the town currently charges, and then capture that difference, capture that revenue stream, that would be a potential debt servicing mechanism for a bond or whatever however we decide to finance that new and enhanced pier, and that would be a funding stream that would be ongoing. It could provide a significant amount of revenue. It would be in a rough capacity a user fee, and unlike our friends in Washington D.C., we would actually be paying for what we're purchasing instead of borrowing from our kids and our grandkids. So I like paying for things. I like at least giving a strategy for paying for things, particularly if they're things that we want above and beyond what are currently there. And I think the Lee County Commissioners would appreciate some guidance and support for a funding mechanism. And it just, you know, nobody likes to have to fund things, but if this is what we want, I think having a funding strategy would potentially enhance its viability.
So I guess I just want to be clear, what we're talking about today is just that we are in support of rebuilding. It's not about the funding strategy, but we want to discuss maybe looking at a funding strategy. I mean, that's something I think the public would very much want to be involved in.
Yeah, I think just to suggest to the Lee County folks that we're open to a funding strategy that
Right.
might include enhanced revenues from parking from Lynn Hall Park and Bowditch Park. We don't have to talk specifics, but I do think that we ought to give them some idea that we're willing to work with them to put together a funding mechanism. Certainly as much public input. We've had a lot of public input on the F&B pier proposal, and I think most of it's been very positive. But I just think we need to come up with a strategy to pay for it.
And another thing that Lee County has consistently said is they want to listen to the public on this. I know that the commissioners meet this week, and this will be a topic. They've already had 4 bids coming through, and they're going to be looking at additional or discussing that at their meeting this week. So certainly, Let's Go FMB representatives will be there, but any kind of support that we can possibly get from the community that shows in favor of this, and if we could have that addendum on there that we're willing to look at funding strategies and that type of thing added into our ordinance or agenda, that would be great.
And I guess I would ask today as well that we allow Karen to speak for the council, and that as I assume you'll be at that county commission meeting, Karen, that we authorize you to bring this forward to the county commissioners, that we're willing to explore this kind of a funding mechanism, obviously along with further public discussion and transparency.
I would be happy to do that.
You know, I would be in favor of doing that, but I think the way it's worded is very important. I don't want it to come across that the town is willing to foot the bill for everything. I mean, we're willing to work in
understand.
conjunction with them to enhance their asset, but I really want to be careful that we're not saying, you know, whatever it is above what we had before, we're willing to pay for.
Oh no. What I'm trying to convey is that if there is a funding mechanism to pay for more than we had before, that we would utilize what Lynn Hall Park is currently charging for parking is demonstrably lower than what the town charges. And if we create an equilibrium between those two, and then capture that additional revenue from Lynn Hall Park, County Park, Bowditch Park, County Park, but the users of that parking are predominantly from outside of Fort Myers Beach, and they're often coming to utilize the pier. This also could potentially help solve some of our parking issues, because part of the The Pier proposal has a very interesting parking dynamic to it as well to enhance the parking. And again, if we offer a funding mechanism to the county commissioners, I think that the chances of success increase dramatically.
Sure.
And that's what I'm thinking about.
Okay, well, that makes sense to me.
But no, I don't. I think this is a county asset, and it's utilized by everyone in Lee County, and outside of Lee County, and the country, and the state of Florida. So I do think that it's that the town has enough challenges on its own, but I think without some kind of an option for the county, they're going to hear this, and then they're going to sort of put it on the list of 25 other things that people are asking for, because there's no funding source proposed.
Okay,
I'm just thinking out loud.
any further discussion? Is there a motion?
I have a question. Go ahead, you go.
We need to read the resolution title.
Okay,
I can do that if you'd like.
I can handle it.
Okay.
There's no changes from what's in our packet?
No.
No.
Correct.
Okay. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, encouraging and providing support to the Lee County Board of County Commission to consider enhancements when rebuilding the pier located on Estero Boulevard in order to build back a better and bolder facility for the enjoyment of the public and economic benefit to the community, and providing for an effective date.
But then do we need to revise it about
How
the
about we do
funding
this?
mechanism?
How about we do this, just to make it simpler? How about we, I will move the resolution with an amendment that we allow Councilwoman Woodson to propose what was discussed today to the county commissioners as an option for funding, obviously with further discussion and with the public, et cetera, but at least to convey that we are open to a specific plan to help finance this enhanced pier.
Okay? Do we have to rewrite the resolution, or do you have what you need?
No, that
Nancy?
would be, excuse me, a separate item.
Be a separate item. It wouldn't be a formal
it's-
part of the
it's a sep-
resolution. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
authorizing Karen
Got it.
informally to
Okay.
discuss this with the county commissioners.
Exactly.
In addition to the resolution.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Is there a motion?
That was
Yeah,
my
a
motion. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of it. There was a lot of talking
It's-
there,
yeah,
mostly on my part.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, second by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, we have our public hearing. Oh, we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then, oh, they are? Okay. All right, we'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and reassess. I gotta get my- Call the meeting back to order. It is 10:06 a.m. We now have our public hearings. The next four items on our agenda are public hearings for review of various land use requests. For the benefit of the public, please be aware that these items are quasi-judicial in nature. Our attorney will further explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these zoning revisions, we have a special exception and some variances. These are quasi-judicial in nature. And what this requires is that our public hearing complies with some procedural requirements that have been established in Florida law and also in our land development code. So these quasi-judicial proceedings, the next four, these are going to be less formal than the proceedings before a circuit court, but they are going to be more formal than the remainder of our meeting has been. And they will follow basic standards of due process, which require noticing the application of the correct standards and decisions to be made on competent and substantial evidence that will be presented to the town council, either in written documents or through oral testimony. The town council will then evaluate the testimony and the information for each of the four items, and then draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria in the Land Development Code or state law, as may be applicable, has been satisfied. So, pure speculation or mere opinion, not based on competent facts, cannot be considered by the council in evaluating an agenda item. The testimony by professionals who are qualified as experts in a particular area has been considered as competent substantial evidence by Florida courts, as well as testimony by neighbors and residents who have fact-based information, such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, or testimony that is based on their personal knowledge and information. So if you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. When you come forward, state your name clearly for the record, whether or not you've been sworn in, and your qualifications or interests in the matter. And for purposes of efficiency, before beginning any of the public hearings, there are a few housekeeping items that we need to address and resolve in the record. The first is I need to ask the town clerk whether all the agenda items have been properly noticed pursuant to our Land Development Code.
Yes, they have.
Also, the next housekeeping item is the disclosure of any conflict of interest that would prohibit any of our town council members and our mayor from voting on any of these items. Does anyone have a conflict of interest?
Council Woodson?
I do not, but I have heard from the public about some concerns.
Okay.
I do not. Vice Mayor?
No conflict of interest.
Councilor King?
None.
Okay, and at this point, anyone who is intending to give testimony, if you could please stand, and the town clerk will administer the oath.
If you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Right. All parties have been sworn.
All right. Ordinance 24-02, DCI rezoning 202-301-60-1301 Estero Boulevard. An ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying the commercial plan development, CPD, zoning for the property located at 1301 Estero Boulevard, generally identified as strap number 19-W6-24-W4-0060B.0160 Fort Myers Beach, providing for other clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, Scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. If any town council member has had any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Councilor King?
I had 3 emails from owners on Santos.
I also had those 3 emails. I had a conversation with one of the owners behind 7-Eleven. I also had a conversation with the planner that's assisting 7-Eleven.
I have also received the same emails that you have received and have been by the site many times. Counselor Woodson?
Those were the concerns that I was talking about, and I also know the location.
Okay. Sarah Prost has been qualified as an expert already by the town council, and based on her education and experience has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use, planning and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time?
They were qualified at LPA. Do they need to be qualified again?
Yes, they do,
Okay.
for this record.
Ken Galander for the record. I am a land use planner with the firm, The Neighborhood Company. I have been a certified planner for over 20 years, practicing land use planning and zoning in the state of Florida since 1999.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Fry. I am with J.R. Evans Engineering. I'm a civil engineer and have been a civil engineer for roughly 10 years.
I missed your first name, sir. What was your first name?
Brandon.
Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Elizabeth Fountain, professional civil engineer with J.R. Evans Engineering. Also a certified floodplain manager. I've been working in Florida since 1999, practicing civil engineering. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve qualifying Ken, Brandon, and Elizabeth as experts in this hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor King, seconded by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Sarah?
Good morning. Sarah Probst with Community Development. The Neighborhood Company, on behalf of 7-Eleven, the property owner for 1301 Estero Boulevard, has applied for a commercial plan development rezoning to develop the property on the corner of Palermo Circle and Estero Boulevard with a convenience store. The downtown zone property was the site of a 7-Eleven prior to Hurricane Ian. A convenience store is allowed by right in the downtown zoning district. However, the request requires several deviations from the Land Development Code for site design. I'm going to briefly describe some of those deviations, or all of those deviations, so that you understand any of the site concerns. The proposed development requires a deviation from Section 34706D to allow access from Estero Boulevard and Palermo Circle. The code requires that if a site has access to a secondary street and Estero, that the access must be from that secondary street. The plan also requires a deviation from Section 34-2013A3 to allow curb cuts wider than 25 feet. The proposed driveway curb cuts are 60 feet on Palermo and 35 feet on Estero. A deviation from the vehicle access separation requirement in Section 10285, the code requires a minimum separation distance on Estero of 250 feet. However, the access point on Estero is 52 feet from the Palermo center line and 141 feet from the access point on the east side of 7-Eleven site. On local streets, 125 feet is required, and the proposed site would provide 52 feet from the Santos Road intersection and 105 from the Estero Boulevard intersection. It also requires a deviation from 34706A to allow parking in front of the building in the downtown zoning district. A deviation from Section 34-2020 D2I1 to allow 8 parking spaces where the code would require 14. The number of parking spaces proposed actually matches up with the downtown parking reduction. However, that reduction doesn't apply when requesting a CPD, so this is a required deviation. They would require a deviation from 34705A1 to reduce the required commercial building frontage from 50% to 43%. And finally, a deviation from Section 34-2015-5, which does not allow vehicles to back into a right-of-way to allow the northernmost parking space to back into the Palermo right-of-way. The proposed development request should be evaluated according to Section 34-85B and C and 34-216 of the LDC. Deviations must be approved, modified, or rejected per the findings in Section 34-216-4. You can find those all in your staff report. Staff's application of these evaluative codes, and I state that found in your staff report. Staff notes that the parking space that backs into the Palermo Circle right-of-way causes a bit of concern for staff, and we're recommending a condition that will require signage to point out to users of that parking space that they are backing into a right-of-way and to be aware of any cross-traffic. This is the first hearing of the ordinance. Second hearing will need to be scheduled for February 5th for a second vote on this item. The LPA recommended approval of the request with conditions included in the staff report. Staff is available for any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here.
Questions for Sarah? Counselor King?
None.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Sarah, the three concerns that we received were regarding a dumpster that was going to be now facing Santos Road. Is that in compliance with all of the town's ordinances, or is there any concern?
So I had a conversation with the applicant regarding this issue, and they are looking into it, looking to see if there's any opportunity. There is a bit of an issue regarding the site design that I did ask them to discuss. So they are looking into it, looking at ways that they can work with the adjacent property owners to make sure that that is agreeable to everyone involved. So they're aware of the situation, and they're going to discuss what they've looked at.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor Woodson?
No, that was my concern, but we'll get to that.
Same.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Would the applicant please proceed with your presentation on this item?
Good morning, council, mayor, city councilors. Again, my name's Ken Galander, certified planner with the Neighborhood Company. Just knowing that we're kind of in a new element here, I do have copies of the presentation, so I can distribute those out if you want to have those in front of you.
Are you going to be going through it up here?
As well up there.
If you guys want, it's up to you.
I'd like to have one.
I know Jim likes paper. It's going to look good on your review.
Thank you, sir.
And Jacob, will people watching at home be able to see this presentation as well? Okay, thanks.
All right. So it's always good to be back in front of you and appreciate your time. Our team here is excited to be able to bring before you a business that has been a staple for Fort Myers Beach for quite a long time. So I'll just walk us through the presentation. Sarah gave an appropriate background. So who we have here, we have the property owner, 7-Eleven. We have a representative, Mr. Mark Heron, here as well. And the Neighborhood Company, again, myself, Ken Galander, J.R. Evans Engineering. We have Elizabeth Fountain and Brandon Fry. And with Creighton Construction and Development, we have Lauren Brown and Kelly Frost. So we're all here to be able to answer any questions as we move forward. The presentation, I'll do a little background of the request, a discussion and an analysis, and findings and conclusion. Again, the parcel that we're dealing with is just under 1/4 acre at the intersection of Estero Boulevard and Palermo. The future land use map category is pedestrian commercial. As stated previously, the existing zoning is downtown. Again, the existing use currently, the site is vacant, but as we know, it was a prior 7-Eleven convenience store. Surrounding the property, we have the rights-of-way of Estero Boulevard, Palermo, and to the north, Santos. We have vacant and some multifamily residential to the north, commercial land uses surrounding to the west and south, and parking lot uses to the east. This provides a aerial representation of the property prior to Hurricane Ian. Some aspects of the prior existing conditions, you can see that along Estero Boulevard was an extensive drive access. It pretty much was the entire frontage of Estero Boulevard, as well as the frontage along Palermo. And the vehicles would just come and go back out onto the right-of-way. Another aspect is the orientation of the building set back off of Estero Boulevard. And obviously the unique property dimensions. It's a very unique triangular shape parcel.
Ken,
Yes,
if
sir.
you go back to that back slide, the previous dumpster was behind the building facing Palermo, is that correct?
Yeah, if I can you see my little, I'm trying not to shake so much, but it is located right here.
It's in the top corner.
And I ask that because, and this may not even be related to the folks who are rebuilding, but there were a number of concerns voiced prior to the storm about that dumpster. So that's why I think in conjunction with the new concerns we have, there were some previous concerns about that dumpster prior to the storm that I
Okay.
think people want to be sensitive to.
Okay. I will be speaking more to the dumpster enclosure a little later on in the presentation. So our specific request is a rezoning from downtown to the commercial plan development. As Sarah stated previously, a convenience retail store is permitted actually by right within the downtown zoning district. So what is being proposed is to redevelop the site with a approximately 3,500 square foot store. FAR of 1.0 would allow for up to over 10,677 square feet of gross floor area. Maintaining 2 access points, obviously working to improve upon what was previously existed, and reduce and eliminate any nonconformities that were present on the site, and comply with the FEMA flood zone requirements. Thus, in order to...
Is this new store bigger than the old store?
Yes.
And I heard that at the LPA meeting. I was curious, in a nutshell, could you explain what additional goods and services will be provided as a result of that enhanced size for the folks who live around there?
As of right now, I can't speak to that, but representatives may be able to speak to that. We can do that now, or...
Jim, let's save
fine.
that to the end.
That's
I'm
fine.
sure
Okay.
Mark want to come up.
Great, thank you. In order to move forward with this redevelopment, it is appropriate to seek the CPD rezoning, providing the flexibility in order to do redevelopment and address some of the unique property constraints. Looking at location, site design, compatibility, drilling down on this a little bit more, we're within a quarter mile east of Times Square, as recognized as the core area of Fort Myers Beach. We know it is a heavily traveled and walkable area of town. Design challenges to incorporate a lot of these elements to redevelopment on this unique property. Our team went through various versions of a site plan, trying to determine the best approach, providing all the services, providing for the appropriate access, what can we do to eliminate nonconformities. And what was developed was the master concept plan that was submitted and reviewed by staff. We feel it maintains the complementary and compatible land uses with the surrounding properties, the commercial, the higher density residential. And the prior convenience store that we know of existed without any major negative impacts. Through then using setbacks, appropriate build-to lines, proposing buffering, the added open space, and the design that we were able to come up with, we feel further ensures the compatibility of the proposed convenience store. This is the concept plan that was reviewed and submitted, or submitted and reviewed by town staff. We can see, there we go. This is the extent of the Estero Boulevard access point which was significantly reduced. It used to extend all the way along the frontage of Estero. The Palermo is, was reduced in width. It is wider than and as required by code, but we need to utilize that deviation opportunity to provide for the maneuverability of vehicles and or trucks that they have to access that site. We can see the location of the proposed building is now oriented closer, a portion of it, to Estero Boulevard, majority of the facade facing the Palermo or the intersection of Palermo and Estero. We have contributed or wanting to enhance the pedestrian connectivity of having a direct pedestrian sidewalk from the entrance directly to the Estero Boulevard pathway, and recognizing the opportunities of different modes of transportation, actually having designated bicycle parking that's up on the northern portion of the site. Looking at consistency with the LDC and comprehensive plan, as staff mentioned, finding compliance with section 3485B and C and 34216. We feel it's an appropriate request to enable this redevelopment based on the unique properties and the impacts of the hurricane. We are consistent with the comp plan goals and objectives, contributing to the redevelopment opportunities and the changes that we know are going to exist along Estero Boulevard. The proposed commercial use is consistent with the future land use category of pedestrian commercial. The FAR, again, is a .033, which is below the one that is allowed. Utilizing the pedestrian-friendly site design, the building orientation, the connectivity that we expressed before with the sidewalk connection directly to Estero Boulevard. We feel that the new building will be updated, visually attractive, and obviously more resilient, knowing of the building construction standards that are in place. And again, maintaining that compatibility with the commercial and the higher density residential in the surrounding area. These are architectural elevations of the proposed 7-Eleven. These are consistent with the design standards of LDC section 34-994 through 997. We are proposing on the eastern and southern elevations to providing some creativity or some engaging aesthetics is the opportunities for murals, which have been a theme that the town has been focusing on, it seems. Here we have a rendering of the property. You can see this is a very initial concept. It is not colored in. It's just showing that the opportunity is there for a mural to be on that side facing Estero. We do have some concepts that have been provided to staff. They're on record. The facade, I'll move to actually where they could occur on the building. On the southern side would be the Pelican and the pier. And then on the portion facing Estero Boulevard, another different version. And speaking with our team, they're very open to engaging other artists that are part of the community, so we can perhaps utilize some local talent to contribute to that concept mural. Again, these were just some ideas that were thrown out. Continuing on, we focused earlier on reducing or eliminating the nonconformities. Not to beat the kind of a dead horse, but we have the pedestrian safety component did not exist prior on the existing site, improving the vehicular maneuvering and circulation, reducing those driveway widths, increasing open space, maintaining some development standards, the setbacks, the build-to lines, and of course, meeting new building code and FEMA flood zone compliance. Urban services did exist and were supported the prior convenience store. Redeveloping the convenience store will not negatively impact the traffic along the adjacent network. With the existing use there and the redevelopment, there's no environmentally critical areas, and the convenience store is an approved and appropriate use in this commercial core area. Sarah did speak to all the deviations being requested. They achieve the aspects of the plan development process to help redevelop this property due to the unique circumstances and the unfortunate results of the hurricane. The proposed deviations, in our opinion, do not impact the public's health, safety, and welfare. It enables the redevelopment to bring this business back to the community and feel they are deemed consistent with the comprehensive plan. Before I get to this section, I do want to speak to the concerns staff did let us know on Thursday about concerns with the neighbors had with the dumpster. So I want to move to this slide. This shows the prior 7-Eleven use, the dumpster location, the dumpster being the access for it directly off and adjacent to the parking area. The proposed enclosure will be fully opaque, a stucco concrete wall with the appropriate access gates, more substantial, more appropriate for maintaining. Basically, for this use, they're looking at 2 8-cubic-yard size dumpsters for waste and for recycling opportunities. This gives a blow-up of that portion of the site where the dumpster enclosure has been oriented. A few aspects of why this design is there. Up in this portion, and they're not labeled, however, but there are utilities. There's communication pedestals, electrical lines, guy wire lines for to supporting the existing utilities out there. So that is one reason why the dumpster was more oriented and the entrance to it off to the side. Other aspects, wanting to point out, these are the green areas are open space areas where landscaping will be provided. We are also providing a type A buffer, which your code does not require a buffer for commercial properties that are adjacent to rights-of-way. So we have included in our proposal a type A buffer rather than none at all. From our original plan.
Which means what, Ken?
So a type A buffer requires, per your code, 4 trees per 100 linear feet of frontage area. So for that area, we would have approximately 2 or 3 trees within that buffer area. Before, there would be no trees required within that designated area.
Where in there is that buffer that you're talking about?
Yes, sir. So this portion
The front. Okay.
here and along this portion here, and it also follow this portion along the back.
And since we're talking about it, so where exactly, I mean, they're not on here, so it's really difficult to see, because the first thing I thought of when I saw this is, why can't you pivot that 90 degrees and have it face Palermo? But you're saying there's utility easements, or there's utility things there that would keep from
Right. There are utility conflicts, so, and we could, the design was you could extend that width of the driveway further, and so our opinion was separate those out, less conflicts with cars, and orient that dumpster more towards that corner of Santos and Palermo.
So you're saying it could potentially be turned, we'll just say 90 degrees to the left, but you would have to extend your driveway further towards Santos.
And likely reduce parking because of
That one
trying to
parking
stay
spot
away
there.
from the utilities.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at other ways to be able to.
Yeah, and we've looked at, it's an unfortunate aspect, and it's just reality of a triangular piece of property and trying to fit all the types of services that are needed to support a business like this.
So would you say that if it, let's just say hypothetically, this was turned 90 degrees, you would have to probably eliminate that one
One or two parking
space at
spaces.
least that we're talking about that's potentially a concern for staff.
Right.
But that would be able to, would that allow you to be able to get around the other issues that you have there with the communication boxes and stuff like that?
I'm going to probably defer to our engineers who have looked at these aspects of it.
Okay. Well, we go ahead and finish your presentation, and we'll bring it, I'll ask you again. I asked the question, but
Yeah.
we'll try to get all the answers at the end.
Sure. I appreciate that,
I'm
Mayor.
guessing there's probably
Yep.
several other ones that have questions.
Let's see. The other aspect is the prior dumpster area, the width. We have looked at how can we ensure that we can fit those 8 cubic yard dumpsters within that enclosure. This version has reduced the size of that enclosure by as much as possible to be able to provide those size dumpsters within there. So just going back, to conclude, we are in full agreement with the staff report, recommendations of approval with conditions. We had a unanimous recommendation of approval by the local planning agency. And through that effort, testimony provided here, we respectfully request town council approve the proposed rezoning on this first reading as submitted and presented to you. So appreciate your time and patience, and happy to have our team answer questions and work through any of your thoughts.
Let's start with Vice Mayor Adderhold's question he had. He was the first to raise it, so.
I just, a couple things. Let me just start off by, if the 7-Eleven folks are here, thank you for coming back. We appreciate having your stores on our island, and we have been thrilled to see the activity on the south end of the island as they progress to potentially be able to sell gas on the island, the first entity to sell gas, which is wonderful. So thank you for coming back. I look at this, one of the challenges, we have heard from the residents on Santos, or potential residents when they come back, but one of the additional challenges is some of us folks, Dan and I have been here for a while, we've heard some concerns prior to the storm about that dumpster that was facing Palermo, and it wasn't, the location was challenging, but I know it's challenging to find place for a dumpster, I get that, but it was the enclosure and, quite frankly, the care of that dumpster that created a lot of problems in the neighborhood. The door was left open, there was always trash outside the enclosure.
Okay.
And so some kind of assurance, I like the new enclosure, because I think that'll solve a lot of the problems, because it sounds like you can't see through that new enclosure, is that fair?
That is our position, right?
So the
It's
key
opaque
thing then
wall.
is, and I don't know how we codify this, Sarah, but it just to, and this is just common courtesy to your neighbors, is just to make sure whoever's managing that store, make sure that they keep that trash swept and clean, to keep the area around the dumpster clean, and keep those doors closed on the dumpster and the lids on the dumpsters closed. I think for whatever reason that was they were having some challenges prior to the storm on that location. I think that's enhanced the concern on this one. So I like the new enclosure, and again, just some assurance that that area will be well maintained and clean, and because I think that would have a nice impact as well.
7-Eleven, I don't want to speak for, they are fully committed to making sure that their site is maintained and the facility is clean and the dumpster enclosure is managed as it should be. Doors are locked and then opened when time is needed for them to be accessed.
That's great. Thank you.
Let's hear from, yeah, come on up.
Hi, Brandon Fry, for the record.
So my question was, just looking at this, you got the bike rack there. I assume the 9.5 feet, I don't know if you want to, I assume the 9.5 feet between the dumpster and the building is for trucks to be able to back in for stocking purposes would be my guess. Is that what that 9.5 feet is there for?
Yes.
Okay. So if you were able to turn that building 90 degrees to have the pickup and drop off from Palermo, I understand you'd have to extend your cutout for Palermo probably. And then maybe the bike racks could be moved back into that landscaped area up closer to the corner. Is that a possibility to be able to do that? I mean, with the stuff that Ken was talking about, that's kind of in your way over there?
Now, doing so, anything's possible. But relocating those existing utilities, I would say, is a challenge. And I think that the location that the dumpster is in now that we've settled on, at least to present to you, creates a much faster pickup for the trash service. It seems like a much more natural path rather than having to have, these 40, 50-foot-long trash trucks make 90-degree turns off of Palermo. Again, given the triangular shape of the parcel, it's kind of difficult for them to make that turn.
But
And
wouldn't, I
this-
mean, what you just said, wouldn't that be your design? They would have to make that hard right turn off of Palermo to be able to pick that up?
No, I would
As opposed to
assume,
driving straight in off of
I would
Palermo.
assume that they would pick up the trash on their way back down, and rather than having to make a turn that was, roughly 90 degrees heading north and then east, they would head south and then sweep in.
So I guess is it the same commercial truck that does the entire residential area around there? Is it, I mean, I usually the trucks that do commercial, they're different. They got those front hooks that drive in and they grab it and they dump it and they go. So that's why I'm wondering, is it the same truck that does that residential loop that's through there on Palermo Circle as well? 'Cause
No,
then it would make
I'm
sense
not
what
sure.
you're saying, but if it's a different truck, I would think that they would have to come in and make that hard right turn and then back out and then go up Palermo. Either way, they have to back out of there, but I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm not suggesting having to move it to utilities or anything like that. I'm just wondering, is it possible to be able to turn that to alleviate the issues that those on Santos have without having to move all those utilities and do all of the work that would be required to do that?
Is it possible? I would say probably. Is it possible without the relocation of all those utilities that we're all trying to avoid? I don't think so.
Okay. Just because, as Vice Mayor said, before the storm, we got several communications about the lack of taking care of that. There was couches there, people were sleeping on the couches. It was not taken care of. And so I understand the residents that live on Santos that have the pause of
Certainly.
having, I think and I don't know if you were able to see the emails that they sent or if the LPA was able to see those. My guess is they were sent after the LPA hearing. So the LPA didn't get a chance to look at that. But anything you can do to help us come up with an idea to alleviate their worry about having what they saw before. I think the concrete walls the stucco walls will definitely help, but
I think it's a totally reasonable concern. And, previously these dumpster areas were translucent. It was a chain link fence
Right.
with the webbing, I guess it would be called, in between. Now it's a completely opaque enclosure, on the front and on the sides. Yep, there it is. Thank you. And we've got some additional landscape proposed around it that hopefully helps to soften that edge and soften that vision of the dumpster as well.
I think also a concern was using Santos as the means to pick up and drop off because of that being a residential street
Sure.
with the noise and the activity.
Again, dumpsters are necessary evils. I think that in a parcel this small, there's not really a great location for it, but we've chosen, what we believe is the greatest compromise between the residents, functionality of the trash truck, buffering, et cetera,
Would there be, and I'm not sure who would be able to answer this, but work with the company? I'm assuming that the concern partly is the hours of when this would be, knowing that they come early in the morning in a quiet neighborhood can be a little discerning.
and that's
and
certainly
just
something that we can pass along, and, operationally, they can help to mitigate those concerns.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
And if it's possible, just to help ease some of the people that have the concerns with the Santos, if between now and the second hearing, assuming it goes to the second hearing, look at that and maybe kind of give us more specifics at the next hearing of, and if you could put on there where those are so it'd be easier to see why it couldn't be turned that way.
We will. We'll elaborate on this with our second presentation to show, maybe some vehicle paths and what buffering might look like from their perspective. and then, maybe a side-by-side as well to
And
show.
some dimensioning on that would be helpful.
Sure.
On the size, it really doesn't show any size of, it's hard to scale how big of an area you're going to need.
I understand.
When you don't know, the box is the box, but without seeing it.
Sure. Well, like you mentioned, assuming this goes to the second hearing, we can certainly provide some more elaboration on that.
Okay. Counselor Woodson, any questions for them, for the applicant? Mark, did you want to come up and say a few
I've
things?
got,
Oh, go ahead.
also a part of the concern was a porta potty location. I assume that's for the building construction time period. I think there was some concern from the Santos folks that that was going to be closer to their area, and if the location can be changed, I suppose, during construction or something?
At this level of, at the rezoning, I don't know where information was provided for during construction where porta potties would be located, but we can certainly note that.
Well, I think there was another, I'm wondering, we had another separate email, I don't know if it went to everybody, but there was a concern with a porta potty that's on Santos facing someone's house
Oh,
on a different
okay.
property, not this property.
I'm sorry, then I'm assuming
Gotcha.
it
Yeah,
was all
it's-
included in the same email.
Yeah,
so-
it was, yeah, but it was a different property that
Okay.
that porta
Gotcha.
potty's on.
Okay.
Thank you.
One item of note that we want to recognize, and Sarah brought this to our attention, and we want to make a commitment to it. The dumpster enclosure rendering that was provided shows a height of the wall as being 7 feet. Code requires 6 feet, and that is what we would be proposing is a 6-foot. Dumpsters will still be well below that height of that wall, and we would not want to seek a deviation for a foot or a few inches. So it would be 6 feet tall, but fully enclosed, fully opaque.
Potentially, 7 feet sounds better than 6 feet to me, but just, once you start piling the garbage on top of it, 7 feet's harder to see over than 6, but you guys.
We could certainly propose a deviation and
So that's not in here,
support-
right? I don't remember, to go to 7 feet, that's not one of,
that is not a deviation.
Got it, okay, I see what you're saying. Disregard what I said then. You don't want to have to open
I
it up.
actually think that's a pretty good idea.
Well,
I like the idea of 7 feet.
But does that require, because you would add another deviation, to have to go back through the LPA and do all of that? To me, that seems more like a public benefit, especially to those on Santos, if that would be something, if it can't be reallocated or removed, if that would be something that would help alleviate or come to the middle for them to be able to understand that there's no other way to put it.
The dumpster should be well below that height still, though, and there should not be a reason that they're piling anything on top of it. It should all be fully contained.
Well,
However, if they wanted to have them taller than 6 feet, they would just have to request that as part of their deviations.
I just look at the picture that you have up there. And that's what everybody saw. At least you didn't put up the one with the couches that sat there, so that wasn't as, but you see how things pile up and they get over, and yes, that's opaque fence, but
Right.
I just think the 7 feet sounds better to me, and maybe it will for the Santos people as well, but it sounds like you're willing to work with them to do whatever makes them
Yes.
comfortable.
Yes. Hearing that there are couches being
There was,
deposited.
when those pictures were taken, there were.
So I don't think
couches
those are
that sat-
7-Eleven's couches.
No, I'm guessing they weren't 7-Eleven's couches, but they were on 7-Eleven property,
Understood.
and they didn't
be
look
code
very
enforcement.
comfortable.
I'm sorry?
They didn't look very comfortable.
No.
Well, and some of these things that we're talking about, the aesthetic view of those dumpsters and what happened and the overflow and everything, these are operations for 7-Eleven. This is not anything to do with
Zoning.
yours, but
We have to know
really-
about 'em,
Yeah,
too.
to really impress upon the 7-Eleven owners in their hiring practices, their policies, their procedures, their guidelines, that these are things that are really of concern to the community. And as good citizens, as people who are
Good
bringing
neighbors.
business in, these are things that really need to be paid attention to. So,
Yes, ma'am.
and I too love the 7 feet. I think it can be a condition of approval.
I agree. Mr. Mayor, just back to my
Yes, sir.
earlier question, on a more positive point, the larger 7-Eleven, just for the people who live in that neighborhood and support that store, what kind of new services would be provided as a result of that larger store?
We'll let Mr. Herron of 7-Eleven
All right.
address that.
Thank you. My name's Mark Aaron. I'm the manager of special projects for 7-Eleven. To start out with the larger store, there's a couple of things, if you guys were familiar with the older store, that really were a barrier to the customers and the community. One was the restrooms. They were in the back room. They were very small. In the larger format, there'll be a male and female dedicated restroom, proper size, proper ADA. The sales counter is going to be relocated with 3 POSs versus 2, so time of service in the convenience store is about 2 minutes. So being able to get people in and out of those parking spaces is a benefit to the customer and the facility. The third piece is expansion of food and beverage. That's really the core of our business, is expanding food and beverages. There will be areas in the center of the store that will also be expanded. We're a very data-rich company. No 2 7-Elevens ever open alike, so we use the data from the store that we had there before to expand the services and the products that the customers were buying. We'll also bring in new bacon store products and some other things that we just didn't have room in that old store to bring in. So a combination of all that and the core businesses that you come to know, fill-in grocery, health and beauty aids, those type of things.
That's great news, because that helps reduce traffic, because folks who can walk there don't have to get in their car and
Yep.
go out and get those services. That's great. Are you also in charge of the 7-Eleven on the south end of the island? Did
I
you
am.
So I just wanted to let you know that the contractor there, the COS folks, Barry Price, they're doing a great job, and we appreciate your sense of urgency on that, because that'll be our first opportunity to get gas on the island. So I just wanted to thank you for your efforts, and as soon as we can get that open, it'll be wonderful. But that your team seems to be doing your contractor seems to be doing a great job.
I appreciate that. I'll pass it on, and we're excited to get that open as well. I do want to address the operations concern. The image that you see there is not the image that 7-Eleven wants. We're a food and beverage destination. That doesn't make you want to come in and buy food and beverage from us, and that's not being a good corporate citizen. We have a field consultant that has roughly 9 stores. That's their job, to make sure that the operator of that store is operating that store in a manner. If not, that we're going to breach the franchisee of that store to either correct it or move on. And we're going to address the area leader if they're not addressing it. So no excuses for what we have in the past, but we do have operational procedures that we're going to implement to make sure these sites they're operated the way that the community wants them and the way 7-Eleven is, and that is not it. So my apologies for that, but I promise you we will address that with local operations and make sure we're doing a better job for you guys.
One other thing I've heard a lot about is Slurpees at this location. They didn't have it before. We need them back.
We will put probably 9 barrels of Slurpee in this store. Proprietary beverages, the new coffee program, Slurpee, iced coffee, which we didn't have before, will all be part of the new program.
Well, Mark, I certainly want to thank you. We've talked several times, and 7-Eleven's commitment to the community and what you've done to help some of the areas like where we're at has been greatly appreciated, and the design looks great. Just a few things that we've brought up, if between now and the next meeting, if you could kind of just lay it out and work with the people on Santos, I think that we'll all benefit from that.
We appreciate that. We'll do our best.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I assume there's no rebuttals from anyone? I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or motion from Town Council to approve with conditions, or deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would move approval of ordinance 24-02, DCI rezoning 202-30160, 1301 Estero Boulevard, to also include staff recommendations and the new deviation of 7 feet for the enclosure for the dumpster.
We would also need whether the motion includes scheduling it for second reading on February 5th. Is that part of the motion?
That is part of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Mayor Allers? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. See you on the 5th. Thank you. Our next public hearing is Resolution 24-11, VAR 202-30233, 11 Palm View Boulevard, a resolution of the Town Council of Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying variance VAR 202-30233, requesting a variance from the LDC 34-638 D1G, which requires new at-grade mechanical equipment to not encroach into the side yard setback to be located on the side of the property with the larger setback where there are differing side setback widths. For the property located at 11 Palm View Boulevard, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Where are we at? Hold on.
Ex parte.
Oh, ex parte. If any town council member has any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity which whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Counselor Woodson?
I've had none.
I have had none. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
I've had none.
Counselor King?
None.
Sarah, are there any individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? As the property owner and applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? Is there anyone here from 11 Palm View? Okay. Sarah,
I'm not sure if the applicant is here.
is there anyone
He
here
was-
from
he
11
was-
Palm View?
He was emailed, but I don't see him.
Okay,
He did receive the packet.
okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. Robbie Robinson, owner of 11 Palmview Boulevard, has applied for a variance from Section 34-638D1G, which requires all new equipment to be elevated or to meet the required side yard setback, and when one side yard is wider than another, the equipment must be placed in the wider side yard. The property owner had a new pool and pool equipment installed in 2021. The initial site plan showed pool equipment in the correct location at the rear of the house. The zoning reviewer approved that initial site plan submittal, but another reviewer failed it. The next submittal moved the pool equipment to the incorrect location, encroaching on the side setback. However, the zoning reviewer had already completed his review and did not review the new submitted site plan. The pool and equipment were installed, and it was not until the final inspection occurred that staff realized the equipment was installed in the incorrect location. The property owner was unaware of any problem with the pool equipment until the final inspection. The applicant has applied for a variance to allow the equipment to remain in the location that it was installed due to the error not of his doing. The equipment encroaches 3.5 feet into the required 7.5-foot side yard setback. The equipment is 4.2 feet from the side property line. An easement is shown on the survey. However, this appears to be an error, as there is a stormwater easement on the opposite side of the property. Staff proposes a condition, and the applicant agreed to a condition that would require the equipment to be moved at the cost of the property owner if there is a utility easement in that location that must be accessed. At the January LPA hearing, the LPA recommended unanimous approval of the request. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Well, the first obvious question, why didn't the reviewer review the second site plan? Or how did that get missed?
I cannot speak to that. I was not working here at that time.
Oh. It was that long ago?
Yes.
Okay. Questions for Sarah? So have you had conversations with, they're not here to ask, so
Yes, I've
You've
had conversations with.
And they're amenable to all of the
Yeah,
conditions that
it
were
was
put in?
just the one condition. I asked if they could get in touch with their surveyor. They were unable to reach the surveyor. We tried to reach out to the surveyor. It shows there's an easement in that side yard. However, it does not appear to be correct. We think that they were making some assumptions about the town that are generally applicable, but not applicable to Fort Myers Beach. There is a stormwater easement on the opposite side of the property, so this appears to be an error. Also, his other equipment is in that side yard. So we don't think that there is actually an easement there. However, just to be on the safe side, in case there is one, he did agree that the equipment could be moved if that site needed to be accessed.
So it just sounds like the contractor took it upon themselves to put it in a different location than what was originally approved?
It was approved at the rear of the property, which was an approvable location. Then when they resubmitted plans that were denied for other things, they shifted it to a different location.
And there's no, I mean, there's no repercussions anybody has against a contractor that does something like this?
Well, if the property owner incurs a loss and damage because of this, that would be a private matter between them, yes.
And there have been several emails that went back and forth and that were
Yeah, I
shared
saw
with
that.
staff. So it has been something he's tried to resolve.
Okay.
So Sarah, I just want to so this is not a new pool after Hurricane Ian?
No.
This is strictly, I'm assuming that the pool equipment was lost in Ian and had to be replaced?
No, it sounds as if it was not lost during Ian. This was a pool that was installed prior to Ian, from what I understand.
Okay. Yeah, 21, they said. and
Yeah,
Ian was
so,
22.
and I think that the pool equipment was still there.
Okay.
From what I can understand, there wasn't really any mention to this. He's just trying to get his property back in order and knew that he wanted to take care of this situation so that he could get everything closed out on that pool.
Okay.
And the letter that you had in your packet, I assume that's from the letter for approval or recommended approval was from the neighbor that would be most affected from the pool equipment where it's at?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like they all have their equipment together in
Mm-hmm.
between the homes,
Pretty
so.
close. Any other questions for Sarah? Councilor King?
None.
Vice Mayor Earl?
No, sir.
I'm good.
No? Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Well, there's no applicant out here, so we will open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'm assuming that we don't need to talk about it. I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion for town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, based upon the LPA's unanimous support for this and our deliberations, I would move passage of Resolution 24-11, VAR 2023023311 Palmview Boulevard.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Adderholt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Woodson. Any further discussion? You want a roll call vote for this? Yeah. Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Councilor Woodson?
Aye.
Councilor King?
Aye.
Mayor Allers? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have Resolution 24-14, VAR 202-30299, 122 Falkirk Street, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying variance to VAR 202-30299, a variance from LDC Table 34-3 to decrease the required street setback by 11 feet from the required 25 feet in the RS zoning district for the property located at 122 Falkirk Street, providing for clarifications as necessary, providing for conflicts of laws, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. Are there any individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? Seeing none, has the property owner applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? Yes, they have. Sarah?
Ex parte?
Oh, I missed that. Ex parte communications. Councilor King?
None.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
None.
I drive by. Councilor Woodson?
I know the location, but none.
Okay. Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. Heidi K. Wood, owner of 122 Falkirk, has applied for a variance to allow the reconstruction of a dwelling unit that was destroyed by Hurricane Ian 11 feet closer to the right-of-way than the code allowed 25 feet. Prior to Ian, the single structure on the property contained a dwelling unit on the ground floor and a dwelling unit on the first floor. Ian destroyed the ground unit, and the applicant is proposing the use of the post-disaster build-back regulations to reconstruct the ground unit above flood. The proposed unit will be attached with a deck and will be 14 feet from the right-of-way property line. The property is located in the RS zoning district and the low-density future land use district, which would not allow the reconstruction of a second unit by right. The applicant is proposing the new unit that is the same size as the previous unit and is proposing a front porch that meets the allowed encroachment into the remaining setback. The new unit could be constructed in the side yard and potentially meet the code-required setbacks. However, staff notes that the proposed location would have the least impact on the adjacent properties. At the January LPA hearing, the LPA unanimously recommended approval of the request. Staff is available to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here.
Counselor King, any questions for Sarah?
I have none.
Vice Mayor Earl?
Not at this time.
Counselor Wilson?
I just have a question on, is this something that is the norm or what you see? Because I know this was a first floor residence that they're now trying to pull out of there and bring to a separate residence. Is that something that is the norm? I mean, I know it all has to go through the variance process and everything else, but what are the benefits of doing that versus, because I'm assuming this is or I think I read it's pre-firm, it could be built back the way it is.
The benefit is that it will be, I'm sure the owner has benefits in her opinion. The benefit is that it will be a flood-safe structure. The new structure will be built to meet all codes, including flood. So it will reduce flood risk and insurance costs. So that's a benefit to the town as well as the owner.
So when you look at all these properties, though, I mean, I know Falkirk Street in there, everything is very far back. So this would be like a structure in the middle of the neighborhood almost.
Well, if you look at the layout of that area,
The overview.
it would be closer to the road, but it would have less impact on a lot of the adjacent properties. So it's not going to be as close. It's going to be in the rear yard of one house. It's going to be across the street from another house, and it's going to be further away from the adjacent properties than it would be if it were put in the side yard. So that's one of the reasons why staff felt that the location was potentially a good location for the neighborhood.
Packet page 286 has an overview that you have in here, if it makes it easier for you to find. The question I have is, could this be possible to be built, I know it would be closer to the other house, but without needing a variance?
I don't
It's
know.
hard to tell, there's no
It's-
dimensions on there to see.
It's hard to tell, and looking at it, it looks like it could possibly, but they still may need a minor variance. Stormwater-wise, I'm not sure how the stormwater works on that property, because I know that there was parking forward of the house, so this might be a better use of that and keep the side yard as more of a stormwater retention area. But I couldn't speak to the specific reasons why she's proposing it necessarily just in that location. It might also be because of the way it's connecting to the house through the use of a deck.
Yeah, I see that. I was just, and these are probably questions for her, but I'm just wondering, because there's no dimensions on the layout that's in the packet, I'm just wondering if it would fit, because you've got an outline there of what could be built without needing a variance. I'm just wondering if that 20 by 20 structure would fit over there, still be able to connect by deck, but.
It looks
not
like it
required.
could possibly, but it may still need somewhat of a variance, or it might need to be changed dimensionally a bit.
The, and is that deck still existing on the existing house? It's still there? Okay. So it's already, it's hard to tell, it looks like it's already, the deck is already extending out past the setback by, what is it? Almost 11 feet, 10 feet, 9 inches, something like that. That's all I had. I'll ask.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And you've been sworn in? Yeah?
Yes, I have been sworn in. I'm Heidi Kaywood, owner of 122 Falkirk. A couple of the questions were, why not build it on the other side of the yard where there's more? That would actually be sitting in front of the house. The house sits perpendicular to the back property line. It's a pie-shaped lot, so it doesn't sit perpendicular to the front of the street. So if you set it over there where you do have a little bit more space, you're going to have a box sitting in front of the house. This puts it off to the side, and the only thing that's really across the setback is about 140 square feet. It's just the corner of, because of the weird shape of the lot, it's the corner of this new build that's going to be across the setback, not the whole structure.
I was just curious, was trying to avoid a variance if it wasn't needed.
Right, right. And again, it's going to be very close to the neighbors. If you're on the other side of the yard over there, there's a neighbor's house and a carport almost on the property line. So you're going to be very much in somebody else's, close to somebody else's yard. On the other side, there's nothing over there.
And this will be open underneath?
Yes,
So you'll have
for parking. Mhm.
underneath it, okay.
Parking and storage, outdoor storage underneath.
Any questions for the applicant?
And this is not in addition to, you're basically moving that first floor unit, putting it to the side.
Correct.
and
The
then what
downstairs will
happens
be
under?
storage. We might even open up part of it at some point, so we have some outdoor living space, but that's on down the road. Right now, it's actually very valuable storage. We've really appreciated having a place to put things inside since we were doing our upstairs remodel. So yeah, this will take place of the apartment that's downstairs. It will no longer be an apartment downstairs.
And I noticed in the packet there was, it looked like an annual lease in there. Was this?
There had been, yes, we had an annual lease downstairs that they were in their third year there, I think, and unfortunately they lost everything that they had. So we really don't want to be back on the ground again. If we can be above BFE, then that's where we would, it's a better use of our money.
Just, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do they plan on coming back if this gets approved?
I haven't talked to them in the last 9 months or so. They had found a place in Cape Coral, so I'm assuming no, but.
Is your intent to keep it as a annual rental, or will it be?
It's possible we might look at that, where it will be rented. If we keep it as a monthly, which is what we do with the upstairs occasionally, then we can also use it as family, which is part of why we bought the house to begin with. As a multifamily, is because we had my sister and her family used the downstairs, my parents used upstairs. So we could be open, though, to an annual. I mean, we absolutely need help paying the taxes and the insurance on this thing, so.
Understood.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Any additional comments from the applicant or Sarah? No? I will now close the public hearing and request discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Discussion? Council Woodson?
No, I would make a motion to approve resolution number 24-14, variance 202-30299 to 122 Falkirk.
Second.
And a motion by Councilor Woodson, seconded by Councilor King. Any further discussion? Councilor Woodson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor King?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Next, we have Resolution 24-12, SEZ 202-30278 for 7400 Estero Boulevard, Leonardo Arms. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, either approving with conditions special exception SEZ 202-30278 to allow reconstruction of a pool, deck, walkways, and a fence in the environmentally critical EC zoning district with conditions for the property located at 7400 Estero Boulevard, providing for Scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. Sarah? Oh, ex parte communication? Any ex parte communication? Vice Mayor Adderholt?
I would just like to see, for the record, up until 2 months ago, I owned a condo next door to Leonardo Arms. We no longer own it. I have also been in touch with people from my condo building and board members of our condo building who received the notice, and And I would just say that those folks were in support of the variance before us.
Okay. Counselor King?
None.
Counselor Whitson?
None.
I have walked the property with Congressman Donalds and several other state representatives, so quite familiar with the area.
Name dropper.
Yeah, right. He wanted to walk under it right after the storm.
Yeah, no.
I wasn't that gutsy. Sarah?
Sort of along, you were talking, you mentioned notice. I would recommend that anybody listening make sure that your addresses are up to date with the property appraisers. We've had a lot of postcards returned to us on different properties. So we're not sure exactly why all of them are getting returned, but we can say that some of the addresses are no longer maybe operational. So anybody listening, make sure that your address is up to date where you can receive mail.
Okay.
Good morning, Sarah Probst with Community Development. Leonardo Arms Beach Club has applied for a special exception to allow the redevelopment of a pool, a pool deck, pool fence, and at-grade walkway in the environmentally critical zoning district, the area seaward of the 1978 Coastal Construction Control Line, CCCL. These structures were in existence prior to Ian and were built in 1969, prior to the creation of the 1978 CCCL. All of the structures are landward of the rock revetment. You will have a plan in front of you that the applicant brought with them today that more clearly shows what is being replaced and that it did exist prior to the storm. The pool deck, at grade walkways, and pool fence are considered major accessory structures and can be replaced with the approval of a special exception per section 34-652E. At the January LPA hearing, the LPA recommended unanimous approval of the request. I am available for any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here.
So just real quick, based on this, it's nice that they supplied this. Thank you for whoever did that. It looks like it does not touch the pool, just the pool deck, the coastal construction line, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Any questions for Sarah?
Oh, and for clarification, they showed you what existed prior to the storm. They are removing that knee wall that is shown on the plans. They are not proposing that at this time. They're proposing vegetation because we didn't think that a wall would be a good idea within the CCCL if it didn't need to be there.
Very good. No questions for Sarah? All right. Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Would the applicant please proceed with the presentation on this item?
Good morning, guys. My name is Miles Lagarde. I'm a general contractor here in the state of Florida. I've been working with Leonardo Arms quite a bit. Timothy, who's the applicant, is up in Michigan, so bear with me. I'm very familiar with the project. Like Sarah had said, she's been fantastic. We are literally just looking to put back what was destroyed by the hurricane. And Sarah had an idea of what we could do to give back, and we are asking that we remove the existing wall that is there and just put back some vegetation. So we are not changing anything from the original structure at all. And it is just the corner of the pool deck that actually runs through the current CCCL.
And I thought I read in the packet that you're going to redo the pool, but that's going to be something separate?
Correct. And actually, it's just a reconstruction. They're going back with almost the identical tile and pavers. It's been through the whole condo committee. So it really is just a reconstruction of the damaged area.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of.
Oh, we can't get that.
I'm
far
sorry.
yet.
I'm sorry.
This is asking some questions, and then we have to public comment. Yep. No questions?
No questions.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide your address, and whether you were sworn in. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. I will now close the public hearing and request discussion or a motion from the town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Vice Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of Resolution 24-12 SEZ 2023-0278 7400 Estero Boulevard, Leonardo Arms.
There's a motion by for approval from Vice
Second.
Mayor Edo, seconded by Counselor King. Any further discussion? Vice Mayor Adderholt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Just Sarah, with respect to making sure people have the proper address, could you say again for the record who they need to contact? I just had somebody reach out to me about that.
So it's the Lee Property Appraiser, so they can check online. If they go to the Lee Property Appraiser website, put in their address, they can see what address their mail will be going to. And if that's not an address that is usable, they need to contact the Lee Property Appraisers to update that.
Thank you.
Next, we have our administrative agenda. There is nothing on that. We will move to final public comment. Final public, anything? Anybody here would like to speak? Mr. Rude?
Eddie Rude, 8150 Estero Boulevard. Good morning, Council. I came to listen to what the representative for Murph might have talked about this morning, and I'm confused that there was no representative from Murph here at the meeting. And if my memory serves me correctly, you asked them to discuss a couple of issues that I'd brought up to the council at a previous council meeting. I attended the Murph meeting that you asked them to discuss those issues. They did discuss them. They were on their agenda. And if my memory serves me correctly, you asked them to report back to you. We're running out of time on one of those issues. The nesting season is starting on February the 15th, and the property owners are requesting that the FWC use the herbicide to stop the sand spurs from growing. The previous council had approved that, and all they're asking for is the current council's blessing to continue that program. The Murph did discuss it, and they did recommend to move forward with the spraying of the herbicide. And I don't know if they've gotten back to you with that decision or not. The Australian pine issue also was discussed, and they also recommended that the town assist the FWC in eradicating the Australian pines outside of the critical wildlife area. I don't know that there's an urgency there other than they're growing and getting bigger by the day, but there needs to be some direction from the council to whether to proceed with the program to do the herbicide spraying. The discussion at Murph was about the chemical, and it was recommended maybe that they look into a different chemical before it's done again in 2025, but there wasn't time enough to explore a different chemical for the spraying that needs to be done before February 15th. And so they recommended that they just use the same herbicide that had been recommended. And I guess the property owners are just looking for council's blessing or their direction so that they can coordinate it with the property owners and figure out how to get it done before the nesting season starts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Town manager items?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things to discuss. We have the Florida League of Cities Legislative Days next week, so I'll be, along with the mayor, and Frankie and Jason will be in Tallahassee lobbying for our town to get what we can. Also, I have discussed with the Lee County Sheriff's Office about having deputies stationed at Margaritaville, I apologize, at Estero and Crescent and at Old San Carlos and Estero, and that cost would be $68,200. I want to get I can't say approval, but just support for moving forward with this so we can get it started, and I'd bring the agreement back to the council at the next council meetings to be ratified.
And what was there a dollar amount put in for the third potential?
If there was a third for 3 deputies, which would be one at the pedestrian crossing, which is no longer functioning, that would go up to $103,000 from $68,200 to $103,000, so $35,000 additional.
And did they, I had a brief conversation with Captain Layler about it. Did he lay out in that, what you have there, the hours of when somebody would be there?
Well, we had kind of established it off of the previous agreement, and it would, yes, the hours would be completely laid out and the time frame. Right now, it's 2 deputies starting on 126, running through Easter 331, and that coincides with the previous agreement we had in place year before last.
Oh, I meant timing. In my conversations with Captain Layler, it was there'll be someone there, a volunteer from 9 till I think 2 o'clock, and then from 2 till 6, I think it was. Something like that. It would be an actual deputy that would be controlling that.
I didn't hear about the volunteer, but
6
yeah.
or 7. So somewhere from 9 in the morning until 7 at night, there would be someone there
Correct.
directing traffic.
Correct. And we've also going to be supplementing that with our own staff that we're going to have trained with some state training that's going to allow our staff that works in the former base, the Neighborhood Services Department, to help as well on high impact traffic here at times and volume times.
And how was it paid for before, and how will we be paying for it now?
Before, I'm not sure how it came out, but we would pay for it out of the gas tax. We've also have the neighborhood neighborhood policing fund that our line item that we establish should we need that. But I believe the gas tax would be the area it would come from. That's a very limited fund, so we have to find things to spend it on, and this is an excellent area to spend it.
The funding is there. Should
Correct.
we move forward with? Okay. Any questions for the town manager?
Sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
Sorry. I totally agree with this. I also, as just an add-on, have there been any further conversations about community policing?
And nothing further. This kind of will kind of springboard into that. I talked to Captain Later about that a while back, and he had some different designs on that. So I need to get more in depth with him on the community policing that he envisions. What he had expressed to me from their perspective was that they thought it would be better if our money was focused on certain events and certain times. So that kind of was what I felt like was opposite of what the council wanted me to direct them to do. So I think we just need to have more conversations with Captain Layler.
I can tell you, he is fully aware of how important it is to this council we fought hard to get it across the finish line, and he knows it's there. Like everyone else, they're dealing with staffing issues, and
I'm sure.
So they know it's important to us, and he'll continue to work on it. At least that's my conversations. But I think your assessment was the way you laid it out, Andy, is correct. That was the intent, is to implement it similar to what is in place that they have in Bonita. That was the start of the. Just to give you a little background, that was the start of Bonita has the same program.
Right.
And I think they have 16 or 17 deputies now they're up to that are working in Bonita, and it's been working very, very well for them. So we kind of tried to model it after what they're doing, obviously a much smaller scale. Still need this, but that's another issue I think that we're going to have to take up along these lines at the next budget cycle, is what's the best way to do the funding for these special events, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, things like that come up. How do we expand that? Because in my memory, in the past, it's always been, well, they should do it because they're Lee County Sheriff's Office, and Lee County Sheriff's Office, well, that's an added service. It's got to be paid for. And there's never been, at least I can remember, Jim, unless you can, any real discussions from management to council as far as how can we put something in place to fund that, to make sure that it's taken care of every year, and we can have that plan going forward instead of scrambling 3 weeks or 4 weeks before an event. Who's going to pay for it?
No, you're correct. You're correct.
Anything else, Andy?
Yes.
Oh, can I add a couple questions on that? So the 2 employees, off-duty officers that would triage the traffic issue, they could potentially begin when? Andy?
26th. That's kind
26th.
of why we're here, to get that blessing, and I'd bring the full agreement back in the first meeting in February.
I think that's great. And then, as the mayor alluded to, and I'm not sure he's ready to announce it yet, but I talked to Captain Lawler as well from the Sheriff's Department, and to their credit, they are looking for volunteers as well, not from the public, but they have trained volunteers who participate, and he's trying to marshal those resources as well, which I think is great, and I commend him for that. I was really intrigued when you and Frankie talked about training our base staff to help out and triage when things are really difficult traffic-wise. What's the timeline for the base staff to get their training and then have them begin service in that area?
Frankie Kropacek, Director of Operations and Compliance for the Town of Fort Myers Beach. Mr. Vice Mayor, currently we have got the training scheduled. It's just a basic course that they would have to attend. They're going to be doing it here on premises, and we could have them in the field within a very short period of time.
That's really encouraging. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to add to that, in conversations with the Lee County Sheriff's Office, a lot of times at these crosswalks, it was the volunteers, the civilian group that did that. And every year they had a end of the year kind of event that the town used to contribute to. And they would use that for their life safety issue, things that they didn't have to pay for out of pocket. But it's my understanding that a few years back that was stopped. So I would like to bring it up at some point to see about getting, they devote their time out there to help us.
Yep.
I think, a donation, if it's financially feasible and it works to go back whatever it was before. I don't remember the dollar amount, but it was not a lot.
I think they had a breakfast for the volunteers and
something like
a
that.
way to honor them, and for whatever reason that I can't even imagine why we would end that, but apparently we did, and so I'm with the mayor on that 100%.
Okay. So we'll move forward with that. FY 2025 Congress appropriations, we're going to be meeting with Congressman Donalds on Friday. Two things, I'd like to get support for the mayor to be able to speak on behalf of the council on a couple of things we're going to address. The town has never gone before the federal government and asked for funding. We're going to change that. There's plenty of federal funding out there, and we're going to be asking for $10 million, stormwater and some other community projects, community support, equipment purchase, and it's pretty low-level information that the congressman wants, because they don't want a lot of detail. They just want specific bullet points so they can just get them added into appropriations and hopefully get funding. But this will be the first time we've done that, and so we're going to do that on Friday. And just a blessing that the mayor can represent the town at that event.
Sounds fantastic.
Last thing, I've been contacted by Dr. Savarese with the professor of coastal resilience and climate change at the water school, and one thing that he's wanting is our support on a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration study on Barrier Island, sea level rise, future storms, that type of thing, and there's no financial obligation on the town's behalf. It would just be a letter of support supporting the research that would go on. The deadline is the 24th of January, so that's why this has kind of come up at not the last minute, but we've gotten information, and that's kind of, I don't know a lot about it. It kind of was something that Councilor Beach had been working on prior to him leaving. So is there support?
I think there is.
I talked to Chad,
Definitely.
and Chad felt like it was also something good. It's just research into coastal, how our coast is being affected.
Do you convey this orally, or is there some kind of a formal letter that
I will
the
have a letter prepared and go through the town attorney to make sure that, we cover our bases, but get the mayor to sign it.
So we'd have a chance to see that letter
Yes,
before it went
we'll
out?
send it out.
Okay.
I think you have the support. Anybody object to that?
Nope.
I'd like to see the letter, but
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
objection at this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Update on the trailers. Trailer updates.
As you've walked by or driven by, you can see that they've been busy. We have Kirkwood Electric, thanks to Jeff Hauge, our Parks Director, out there every day monitoring the situation, hooking up. We're going to be on generator power in the interim, once we do get everything connected. We're still currently working, like most of the folks on the island, with FP&L to get them out here for a transformer replacement and see if we can get that handled before year 3 after Ian. But we also have decking showing up here within the next week, ramps to get in and out of the trailers, which was it's going to be aluminum, just like our current setup is. And that's pretty much it. We got furniture also arriving here within the next week or so.
Did you guys have a meeting with FP&L higher-ups this past week? And I'm just curious how that went.
We haven't had a meeting yet, but we are getting one scheduled with the vice president. The mayor has been part of that conversation. We've asked them to expedite that meeting ASAP. One last thing, I've asked this gentleman to sit through this meeting, and he's our new Public Works and Utilities Director, Mark Ashton, is here. Mark, if you stand up and just kind of wave your arms and let everybody see who you
come
are.
on up and introduce yourself,
you can even
Mark.
come up here.
Come on,
I'm sure they've probably got, some questions. And just talk a little bit about yourself, your background. We're excited to have Mark. Mark brings a lot of experience to us in the areas of utilities and relationships with the county, things that we're patching, and just some things have come to light recently, and it's good to see staff and how we're kind of changing the mentality of how we deal with the county and the state and the federal government and things like that. But Mark, welcome.
Mark,
So-
what's your title again? Your formal title?
My former title, first I'm Mark Ashton. My former title is Public Works and Utilities Director. So I'm in charge of both departments. So real quick, I've been in Lee County, moved here with my parents in 1972. So been here over 50 years. Worked with the city of Cape Coral for about 10 years in the water division, drilled wells in the 70s. Worked for the city of Cape Coral in the water department. Started as an operator, worked up to running the water division there. Went from that, went to a small utilities, and that didn't work out so well because a bigger utilities bought the smaller utilities and said goodbye to all the management. So they said, okay. Came back, went to work for Lee County Health Department, Environmental Engineering. Worked in the water division there. Worked my way up to Engineering Supervisor 1. Was in charge of all the potable water program, Healthy Beaches program, gasoline storage tank, contamination with wells and things like that. So I was in charge of all those programs. Then as I was leaning on towards the years, went back to operations with Lee County Utilities. Excuse me, sorry. Worked at water treatment plants mostly. I do have my A water treatment plant license. Went back and actually retired from FRS with Lee County. That lasted 28 days, and then we had sort of a major weather event happen. And then went to work for our church, was the #1 distribution site for FEMA in Cape Coral for about 3 weeks. We just served about 5,000 cars a day. Whatever FEMA would give us, we gave it out. Tarps, baby food, anything. Like I said, we were serving about 5,000 cars a day. Plus, anybody who came in and needed supplies out for Pine Island, Matlacha, we served everybody. And when that ended, I went to work for Greater Pine Island Water Association. I knew the general manager there, and he needed help recovering from the hurricane for his utilities. So I went in, helped him with operations, get things back going again. And that was only for a year. That's all he needed some help with. And then I found out about this job and talked with Andy, and he said, come on down. I said, at this point in my career, I want to help. I'm not looking to climb the corporate ladder. I want to help. And just on a personal note, the beach is our happy place. So we've been coming to the beach forever. That was way back when they used to have lifeguards down at the pier. No Name Storm came in and wiped all those guys out, and they never brought them back. So that's how long we've been coming to the beach. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm on board completely with Andy and Frankie's idea of we're here to help to get this town back to normal and as fast as we can do it. So anything I can do to help, I can't wait. It's awesome.
Welcome,
Any
Mark.
questions?
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
service.
Welcome.
Oh, thanks.
Glad to have you here, and thanks for your willingness to help out.
Yep.
I think
Love
you
it.
gave Counselor King a potential career path for bringing the lifeguards back.
Yeah.
Me and Dutch Reagan.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
Welcome
guys.
aboard.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, that's all.
Nancy?
Okay, just quick, The appropriations direction to the town manager, I think he also needed a letter, and I just want to make sure I'm okay helping him do that. So that's the first easy one. I see nods, so I'm
Please,
moving on.
yes.
The next, the item that is under the town attorney's item is a resolution of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, adopting and amending the town council policies and procedures manual and providing an effective date. So this item has been before you a couple times, and we've been making it better each time. At the last meeting, you gave us direction to make 3 additional changes. One was to check the links to make sure that they were working, which we did. Councilmember King brought up a little inconsistency that was in paragraph 5 concerning residency, which we took care of that. And also, we added a brand-new paragraph 13, which was to address some procedures to be followed in the event of a vacancy. And if there's questions, I can read the new language if you want to modify it a little bit, or I think it's pretty straightforward. It basically is the direction that you gave us to deal with our immediate vacancy that we have. We just put it in writing.
Any questions for Nancy? Counselor King?
Nope.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
No, nice job, and if we could have the clerk, when this is all done and codified, if you'd be so kind of give us a hard copy, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Counselor Woodson?
No, I've read the changes and everything looks in line.
All right. I know that. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-182?
So moved.
I got a motion by Counselor Woodson,
Second.
seconded by Counselor King. Any further discussion? No, you don't need a roll call on this. You need a roll call on this? Okay.
Yes, it's a resolution.
Resolution. Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Mayor Allers, aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
What else do you have?
I don't have anything else.
Nothing.
Okay.
That's it.
Can I just, while we're talking, some of the outstanding litigation, I'm just curious if you've had any update on the Kia Stero issue?
So the Kia Stero issue is moving forward. I think that there was a trial conference last week, and I think that they were moving towards trial. We do have some little cleanup that we're going to be doing concerning the authorization to foreclose. We'll be going to the special magistrate hopefully in the next week or two. It's just a matter of checking the box, and then we're back in the litigation.
So you say it's getting ready to go to trial?
I believe so, yes.
And what exactly is being litigated at that point?
I believe it's the foreclosure of the liens that have been placed on the property.
Okay, thank you.
And can you also give us an update on Persad Properties and what is happening
Facade
with that?
Properties, you all approved a settlement agreement in the recent past, and there was a timeline to have a deposit made with the town of $250,000, which the town did receive that money. There was also a time deadline to have a bond supported by a letter of credit. That has also taken place. The town now has probably 12 days left to execute the release that will be filed of record, and that should move us along the way. The settlement agreement also provides that the town will periodically monitor to make sure that there's continued compliance. In the event that there is a violation, we would go through the standard code enforcement procedure, and if a violation is found, then based on the settlement agreement, the town would have an opportunity to collect the letter of credit secured by the bond, or the bond secured by the letter of credit.
So at this point, the timing and everything is intact and
flowing pursuant to the terms of the settlement agreement that was approved by the town, yes.
I'm sorry, Nancy, I meant to ask, has a trial date been established for the Kia Stero trial?
I don't know right offhand, but I can get back and advise all of you by email.
Thank you.
Anything else for Nancy? All right. Thank you. Council member items and report. We'll start with you, Councilor Whitson.
I have a couple of things. So I mentioned earlier about the Putt and Pub, and I just got an update that Putt and Pub raised $70,000 this past weekend, and $55,000 of that, which is after expenses or whatever, I'm assuming, is going to be distributed to the 10 local charities that participated in that. So that is huge, huge, huge. And again, can't thank the Women's Club and all the volunteers and the 501c3 organizations that participated in it. It was just a great event. Great event. So thank you. The other thing I want to bring up, since I inherited Resilient Lee with Councilor Veach leaving, so this week is a meeting on Thursday that is voting to adopt their plan, the Recovery and Resilience Plan. And I had a separate meeting with the people who have been working on this to bring me up to speed on what will all be discussed, how they went through, getting to this point. When I went through and read it, and I had asked our clerk to actually ask all of you for your feedback, go through and look at it. But when I went through it, this is to me, a very broad-based Lee County overview of going forward and how to shore up various entities in if and when, and hope we never do have another Ian on our hands. I was hoping that it would be a little bit more designated to different areas, like Fort Myers Beach would have a plan, Estero would have a plan, Bonita Springs would have a plan, but that is not what this is. This is very overarching, all-encompassing type plan. So I didn't know if any of you had any comments. I will be there on Thursday. I will voice that concern that it's not as deep as I had hoped it would be. But I didn't know if any of you had any input on that.
I read it as well, and it's pretty much what I expected. It, as you said, it's a very umbrella-ish kind of document. There's really not a lot of specifics to it, and I haven't been involved with it, so I'm guessing that was their intent, is that they wanted it to be an umbrella-ish kind of
Broad-based.
But I guess my
overarching.
question would be along the same lines as yours. Is there any discussions about incorporating specific municipalities' plans into it as far as recovery?
Mm-hmm.
As a subsection of the greater plan that they have. And in people I've spoke to in other municipalities, they have shared the same concern that both you and I have I wouldn't say concern, but observation.
Yeah, I just wanted it, I personally wanted it to go deeper, and I didn't see that.
I would third that thought, if you can do such a thing. The lack of granularity, given all the various meetings we've had, the meetings we've had just in Fort Myers Beach alone, the meetings that Councilor Veach has gone to, the meetings that have been held throughout the region, it is surprising that there's not more granularity. And I know we had a consultant that assisted us with our requests, so hopefully the consultant's input will be provided as well, and hopefully this thing still has some opportunity for input from Fort Myers Beach.
One of the things I did ask in my meeting that took place last week, getting the whole overview of it, I was specifically asking about the HUD programs and the $1.1 billion, and they made it very clear that the 1.1 billion, the CDBG, DR, what all those initials, that action plan is totally separate from this recovery and resilience plan. So this plan has no bearing on how that 1.1 billion is going to be distributed. So that's all I have.
Okay. Vice Mayor Earl?
I have nothing additional.
Councilor King?
Sitting on the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization for the town, I keep track of projects that impact the town. And the San Carlos Boulevard project was rebid in December and now has a start date. So I was in communication with Chris Spies, the project manager, and he's shown up today to share some information with us. He's also brought the Southwest Area Office Director, Wayne Gaither, and I appreciate them both being here and waiting as long as they have. And if you just want to step up and go ahead, and Jacob, just go ahead and roll the PowerPoint.
So just before you start, Chris, is there anything else on your, if we can wrap this up, then you can be the final thing, if you have anything else to bring up?
No.
I just have one quick thing, if you don't mind, Chris, and then we'll be done. We all heard at the condo meeting that, we're all in support of trying to get a moratorium for the condo associations. I'd ask if there's support to have Nancy draft a resolution of support from the council. I think that would hold more weight than just a letter. And then also allow her the ability to sign the document on behalf of both myself and Nancy. How did you put the
So it
legal
would be
terminology?
basically subject to legal sign-off. So I would draft something, he would make sure that I haven't deviated from the direction from council, and I would make sure that he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, so it's kind of a check and balance.
And so this is regarding the delay in reserve
Yeah,
funding.
to ask for a 2-year moratorium on the funding of the reserves.
I
Con-
totally support that.
Consent.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. That's it. And then
Thank
the last, one quick thing is we will be going up to, based on your CDBG-DR funding, we're going to be going up to DC early February to meet with our legislative members to really push home that they spent a lot of time on the island telling us we were going to get that funding, and the program that is put out so far, we don't feel with our consultants that it covers all the needs of Fort Myers Beach. So we're going to be up there lobbying to ask them for their support to push back on the plan a little bit to get that economic revitalization put in there for the areas that were hit the hardest. So with that, let's-
Mayor,
yes.
just one minor little detail, and that's what we do, is details, right? On a resolution, we do have to have a roll call vote.
Okay. There's no resolution number, so it's just kind of a,
Probably be somewhere around 18 or 19, but it would be 24-18, I believe. But,
what was the last?
and we don't know the title.
So it's 24-18, and it would be a resolution to support legislative changes to Florida law that would facilitate the discussion that was had at the condo meeting.
Okay.
And again, subject to legal sign-off, so I'll fill in the details. He'll cross-check me to make sure I haven't added anything else.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 24-18 regarding a moratorium on reserve funding for the town of Fort Myers Beach condos. I don't know what else we need to add to that.
I'll second.
Yeah,
They're gonna-
that's sufficient.
What's that?
That's sufficient.
A motion, and we got a motion and a second.
Just
Roll call vote.
5-second discussion. For those who are still, so those hardy souls are still watching, and you're in a condo, just because the council's doing this, it shouldn't dissuade you from doing it yourselves. These legislators need to hear from individual condo boards and unit owners that this is creating a hardship, and so the more correspondence that the legislators can hear from, aside from just the town, the better this effort is, the better chance that this effort has to succeed. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and if we could, Andy, put out our delegation email addresses and phone numbers for those that may not have it, put it out on the town's website as well as the town's social media platforms for ease of finding the places you're supposed to send those letters. Well, we got a motion by Mayor Allers, seconded by Councilor Woodson. Mayor Allers, aye. Councilor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
And I'm going to say aye, but I would also say with the mayor's wise request there, Andy, if you could also include the draft or whatever resolution we come up with, so people have some language that they can include into their letter to their legislator. Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, take it away.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Chris.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Good morning, everybody. Chris Spees, I'm here on behalf of the Florida Department of Transportation to discuss this project. Councilor King had mentioned he requested an update for the project since it's the contract's just been awarded and it's getting ready for construction. So what I wanted to do is just basically briefly summarize the high points of the project. Basically, actually, I should go back and talk about the limits here real quick. It's from north of Crescent Street to north of Hurricane Bay Bridge. Basically, there were a couple objectives when we started this project. I want to say it was back in 2018, 2019, I think, when the design got started. We wanted to improve safety conditions, obviously improve the operational conditions, and relieve congestion by improving mobility, not just through cars, but by increased transit ship ridership, and improving and adding bicycle and pedestrian features. The project limits, as I mentioned, were north of Crescent Street to north of Hurricane Bay Bridge. It's about a mile in length. Currently, as I mentioned, we have wrapped up design and are moving towards beginning construction. We are estimating an 18-month duration for the construction of the project. I'm going to go from the north to the south in the project just to kind of give you an overlay, and I'm going to lightly touch on a component that I'm going to go back in more detail about the what I call the hybrid concept here. We're going to start at Hurricane Bay Bridge. We're going to be resurfacing and restriping the bridge for bicycle lanes in each direction. There's also going to be a portion of the bridge deck that's going to be converted to provide a 5-foot barrier protected sidewalk along the west side of the bridge. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little happy here with there we go. From Main Street to Hurricane Bay Bridge, we also will be resurfacing and restriping for those bicycle lanes in each direction. We did a speed study, and we're going to be reducing the posted speed from 45 to 40 miles per hour for bicycle safety for those on-road users. We are also going to be converting the signal at Prescott Street, Buttonwood Drive, to a hybrid signal operation. Basically, and this is through coordination, when we had the public hearing back in February of 22, we got a lot of feedback from the council as well as the public and the fire district in regards to the benefits of some of the features of how the road operates. One of the things was keeping the alternating signal. So what we did, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about this in a minute, so I'm just going to try and take you guys piece by piece through this. We're going to keep the signal. It's going to be replaced, but it's going to function during peak season, as is the current situation where it'll be alternating. And during off-season conditions, we're going to go back to a standard traffic signal, red light operation, so that both lanes will be able to flow, free flow, during the lower volume times of the season. At the intersection of St. Carlos Boulevard and Main Street, we're proposing a new traffic signal. This will include the standard pedestrian crosswalks with the signals and push buttons for those pedestrians. There will also be a new bus bay that'll be in the southwest corner. That'll be the southbound direction, the inbound direction, right prior to the bridge. And then the bottleneck that currently exists right prior to the bridge, we're going to be widening to remove that bottleneck and accommodate 2 general use lanes straight onto the Matanzas Pass Bridge. The Matanzas Pass Bridge in general, we are going to be, and this goes back into the hybrid thing, during peak season, we'll be able to maintain that bus bike lane. During the off-season, we are going to be utilizing that as a general use lane, basically to try and improve the flow of traffic onto the island and minimize the amount of congestion and delay for the beach. The bridge is also going to be repurposed, so we're going to be expanding the existing sidewalk. Right now, it's about 5 feet 10 inches, and if you're a cyclist, there's basically a requirement that you have to walk your bicycle across. Because it's pretty tight, and any kind of pedestrians, it would create some unruly conflicts. We're going to be widening that to an 8-foot shared use path. They'll provide the opportunity for cyclists to be able to use that more freely and not have to dismount to walk their bike across the bridge.
Chris, before you move on, will there be any dedicated markings on that, like a walk one side, bike the other side, or will it be just kind of a free for all?
With that one, it's going to be more of a free for all. Usually, the wider shared use paths, when we typically like the 12-foot, 14-foot, you're able to put those kind of delineations. This one is more of, we're still limited with our space, so they're going to have to be aware of basically the other users on the path.
Okay.
And we have spoken with the planning section. I know this was a constant conversation about the bridge and how it's set up. You know, the intent of wanting to try and provide accommodations on both sides of the bridge. And I know we couldn't get to that point, but I know we have talked to the planning section about being able to provide that and the interest in having dual-way users in the future when we do come to that point where we need a new bridge. So it's definitely something that we've expressed interest in to the planning, so they make sure that that's accommodated. This is what I was alluding to a little bit, and bear with me here on this one. So basically, as I talked about with the Buttonwood Prescott signal, I'm going to break this into basically how it's going to function in seasonal aspect. We're going to have the peak season. Ignore the time frames for now because that's dependent on Lee County and you guys and basically how the traffic functions on Fort Myers Beach. But basically, the way it's going to work is Buttonwood Prescott's going to be during the peak season. It'll be the alternating function. The bridge, Matanzas Pass Bridge, will be just as it is today. It'll operate as a bus bike only lane. Off season, to improve the conditions, we are going to be converting they'll be able to basically, Lee County will be able to flick a switch and basically convert it to a regular traffic signal, and it'll allow both lanes to be able to flow continuously in the off season at lower volume. And then basically the signage will, I'm sorry, I'm getting tracked off here. And then the Matanzas Pass Bridge will be basically a general use lane during those lower volume. So in the peak season, we will have signage that basically will be in effect that will be able to direct the traffic along with the alternating signals that up ahead to the Matanzas Pass Bridge, it'll be a bus only lane that will be able to provide that accommodation.
So for simplicity for those that are watching,
Yeah.
is it safe to say that during season, it's going to operate pretty much exactly like it's operating now?
Correct.
Outside of season, that bus lane will be converted into a through traffic lane that can be used to get on the island, as well as the signal at Buttonwood and Prescott, that would be a conventional
Correct.
signal.
Yeah, sometimes my wife complains all the time. I get too wordy sometimes. The beauty of this is basically Lee County will be able to monitor the traffic. So let's say we are in a condition where it's off season, but there's an event or something that's going on and traffic backs up. They'll be able to monitor this and see that that's happening and convert back to the peak season condition that's existing right now to offset those. Because there were a lot of concerns from the fire district being able, response times and certain things like that if traffic would back up. And both lanes, they usually utilize that bus lane as a way to circumvent the traffic to get onto the island. This would allow them to basically not cause any issues with that. So.
And another concern that has been brought up, and I know we've talked about it several times, but all those lights, the light at Buttonwood, the new light that'll be at Main Street, the light at the base of the bridge, the crescent, and then the one at Old San Carlos, those will all work together?
Correct. They're all going to be connected. That's another part of the project. So there's a lot of smaller little bells and whistles to it. There'll be connectivity that'll be brought across the bridge so that they'll all be interconnected, so that Lee County will be able to operate those and put them together on a more cohesive schedule. If that's the best way to
So,
put them.
when they're green, they're all green. When they're red, they're all red. Or?
Well, they'll be coordinated better to function. I'm not an expert when it comes to traffic signal coordination, but basically they're able to operate the signals at a more efficient rate, so it flows better. And then obviously the main, we were going to talk about Seafarers Alternative, the intersection. We're going to be reconstructing San Carlos Boulevard at the intersection. There'll be the new signal. It'll be replacing the existing pedestrian crosswalk signal. There's the opportunity for landscaping in the middle. There's currently conversations, I know, agreement between Lee County and Margaritaville. Margaritaville is going to be the maintaining agency for this. One of the things that I know we've discussed a lot, and I think it was something that you guys discussed a little bit earlier about the police presence because of the pedestrians jaywalking in this area. This will provide two opportunities. One, basically the landscaping can help deter the interest in pedestrians trying to cross at locations that aren't safe, and hopefully steer them towards the marked crossings that we have at 5th Street. And then we're also going to have a mid-block crossing that's going to be signed with the rectangular rapid flashing beacons that can be actuated. So we'll have those two opportunities, as well as there's a new bus bay that's going to be incorporated on both the Margarita Resort and the Crescent Beach Family Park. And I think
Did you say, Chris, all these crosswalks are going to have the flashing beacons?
So there's going to be flashing beacons at the mid-block crossing, which is to the south. It's just to it's about adjacent to the Crescent Beach Family Park bus bay.
So those two little ones that kind of go into the grassy area there.
Yeah, it's kind of askew to allow the pedestrians some time to queue up in the median if traffic's heavy in one way or the other.
Has there been any thought at all to putting walkovers versus just crosswalks?
Like a pedestrian overpass.
Mhm.
There has been some requests for that. That was not part of this project when it began. I know there is some requests that have come in, and I know it's been a while since I've talked with those people with like the bike ped community about the programs that they have for these kind of features. I'm trying to think of, I don't know. Yeah, I guess this is on the Sun Trail facility, so this wouldn't be applicable. But that is something that could be evaluated in the future. I think a lot of it has to come apart with demand and safety and basically weighs the cost.
I know this project's down the road, but it just made me think about it over Thanksgiving when we were up there. We talk a lot about overpasses. And I know that we're Barrier Island and water table is probably an issue, but we never talk about underpasses. You know, if you go to the villages, everything goes under the road there. There's nothing that crosses over the road. It always goes under the road, whether it's golf carts, walking, it always goes under. I don't know if that's a feasible thing to do here, and I'm guessing this project's already been out, so this is down the road, but is that something FDOT does, or is that something that is feasible being a Barrier Island?
I think you're spot on with the water table. It creates a huge challenge in regards to, anything under the subterranean. So yeah, basically that would be a very difficult challenge in that regard. I know I've talked with, Manatee County had looked at one in one of their parks, and basically the potential that it could turn into like a water holding facility. Yeah. So that's why we usually try not to go in that direction.
Go, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Wayne Gaither, I'm the director for the Southwest Area Office for District 1 FDOT. I do know that there was some preliminary discussions about a overpass in this area somewhere, and it's tight to try to fit everything in place. So in an effort to try and make this as usable for everyone, that's why you end up seeing the skewing of the crosswalks. That means that's the least amount of impact, not only to the traffic that was moving through the area, but the intent was also to give staging areas for pedestrians, as Chris was saying, so that we would be able to get folks into the proper areas to have them cross. That was one of the discussions. And then, yes, there was quite a bit of discussion about underpasses as well, for the same reasons that were brought up early on. They were pretty much shot down. They were coming close to the approach of the bridge is where they were talking about doing it. That gets to be very expensive when you try and fit something into that area, and then it becomes something that becomes even harder to manage as far as a lot of the effort that's gone through the design on how to establish the channelization for pedestrians to move through and keep them as safe as possible.
You know,
That was really early in the whole process, though. That's when we
well,
were still talking with the county.
Yeah, it was when we were having the public meetings that we talked about the pedestrian overpasses, and we actually talked about the tunnels as well. And I would just stress to you and beg you, quite frankly, and I appreciate you being here this morning, with Margaritaville now completed, and you see that terrace, and you see the pedestrian overpass by Crescent, with the pedestrian overpass potential for Times Square going to the terrace at Margaritaville, who's open to the concept, I hope you'll keep that in mind, because many folks, as they see these maps, as well-meaning as they are, we all live in terror that all these additional crosswalks and stoplights are going to be challenging. So that pedestrian overpass, that second pedestrian overpass from Margaritaville to over to Times Square, or anywhere in this area that makes sense for you guys, I just hope you'll keep that in the back of your head as a possibility, because people are very, very nervous right now, and we're very thankful, but we're also very nervous about what's being proposed.
One more comment on that? Yeah. So one thing to bring up is the footprint for Florida Department of Transportation's portion of the roadway actually ends closer to the bridge. That would actually be a discussion that would be going on with Lee County as you were moving closer to the Times Square area and involving Margaritaville. Not to say that FDOT would not be here to offer any assistance that we could, but yeah, pretty much the State Road 865 turns into Estero Boulevard, which then is a county road farther toward the north side of the graphic that you see.
So if we wanted to have discussions about adding some sort of guardrail system to direct people to the biggest issue that we have, obviously, is the jaywalking, and they cross wherever they want to cross. I don't see how this solves that issue. And I know we've talked about the guardrail system in the past, but based on what you just said, is that something that we discuss with you, or we would discuss that with Lee County?
The county.
Lee County.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, now, we had that discussion with you guys last time, and you said that potentially the vegetation, there's types of vegetation that could
Correct.
serve as, in essence, guardrails, thorns, et cetera, thickness, just different types of vegetation that you guys use in lieu of guardrails that would really help channel folks to the crosswalks. Is that still your?
That's the intent.
Intent?
That's what we're working on. Yeah, the challenge with this is it's busy enough as it is.
Sure.
I didn't want to put any kind of landscaping concept in there, but the idea is, you're correct, is basically the landscaping that's designed to put in there is to discourage people from trying to cross. But you know, a fence would definitely be something that's more effective sometimes,
or guardrail.
but it may not be as aesthetically pleasing. So I think that was one of the things that we were looking at too, was that it would be kind of, you know, a welcoming sign to the, you know, that you've arrived at the beach, but yet at the same time dual purpose of trying to discourage pedestrians from crossing in that grassy area.
And I understand the safety is, maybe you can hide the guardrails or something, but with the biggest concern is the guardrail that gets hit every other month that we've talked about, right?
Yes, I forgot to mention that there will be a concrete barrier that's going to be placed on the side where there's the frequent hits to the, I guess it's now a cafe and an ice cream shop, I think.
Yeah. You guys fixed it, and then 2 weeks later it was down again.
Yeah, that was one of the first calls that I talked with maintenance. They're like, yes, please, let's fix this.
So it'll be a concrete wall that'll be there? Or?
Yes, it'll be a concrete barrier, basically. So it'll minimize the amount of repairs or the maintenance that'll have to come out and be more safer for the pedestrians that utilize it behind the stores.
All right.
And then just a quick slide just about our coordination with some of the other projects that have either already gone in, as you had mentioned, Mayor, about the ITS connections, as well as we had coordination with Margaritaville as they were constructing. This timeline slid a little bit because of Ian, and also our bidding and contracting process took a little bit longer than we anticipated. But we are going to be working with them to make sure this is as seamless a process as possible for the construction, and we get this done so that it can it can finally be done being under construction. Just a quick note that we have our project website up with a myriad of information on there as well, and you can find a lot there, as well as my contact information. And this next slide actually has the rest of my contact information. So please feel free to contact me if you guys have any questions about this or want to have further discussions.
And when is the projected start date, and are you planning on starting off the island, coming towards the island, or starting on the roundabout going back?
That's a good question. I have to get back with our contractor and talk with them about that. Just got assigned. We're just starting. It was just awarded, so we're just having interim meetings right now. The initial thought process back when it was supposed to be awarded last March, about a year ago, was that we were going to have to stay off island initially until Margaritaville wrapped up, and then begin with them. Are they completely finished now?
Pretty close.
They're pretty close. Yeah. The thought process is we might not have to do that, and maybe we can work on the island as well, but we're going to coordinate with them and you guys to make sure there's no overlaps or any issues before they get started.
Okay.
And your other question, it typically takes about 3 months from contract award to, breaking ground. So we're anticipating probably about the April timeframe is about when you should start seeing some activity on the island.
I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of permitting that's going to have to come through the town for that roundabout area, and your contractor is aware of that, or is that all going to be through the state? I guess, will the town be dealing with the state, or does the town have nothing to do as far as permitting when it comes to this area?
The county, according to Wayne.
The county.
Yes.
So I have a question until you get started, and I know that everything's been delayed, but the traffic light that's currently at Crescent, which backs up everything. I mean, I know we're in season. I know we have heavier traffic. I think we have really heavy traffic for the number of people that we actually have staying on the island because everyone's coming for day trips. I mean, because there's not that many places to stay, but people still come to the beach. So is there any way to just put that light, because it doesn't time with anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way of just putting that light as flashing yellow until all of this gets done and coordinated? Because right now it's just a backup.
Let me coordinate with the county since it's their signal and see what we can do. Considering we'll make them, I know they're aware that this project's coming in, but
I mean, it's the only light on the beach. There's no other lights to coordinate with, and it's.
Yeah, let me coordinate with them and see what we could do.
And talking with Captain Lather, when the deputies are out there, I don't know what you want to call them, the crossing guards, but when the traffic directors are out there, that light they have the control to be able to flip that to a flashing yellow.
But it'd be nice if it was all-time flashing yellows for now.
I think we'll disagree on that. I think that would cause even more problems, but it doesn't hurt to try it.
Just two quick ones. The overall cost of the 18-month project, and how does that cost break down in terms of how that cost is shared? Ballpark.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think now. It's been a while since I've had to look at these numbers.
I think most of it's state.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I know there's a portion of it that's the county has put in. I want to say, oh man, yeah, it was about $400,000 that the county put into it, and the rest of it was state funding.
Current sidewalks, you say, were 5 feet, and the new ones will be 8 feet wide?
The sidewalk on Matanzas Pass Bridge will be widened from 5 feet 10 to 8 foot.
And then what's the current life cycle of our bridge? Ballpark.
You remember this? Okay.
I don't know the life cycle that they have associated to the bridge, but I have through other discussions, and again, this goes early on to the process, where we were actually taking a look at the potential to cantilever a pedestrian pathway on the bridge. And they did not want to impact the bridge by drilling in a cantilever facility, because that would have a significant impact to the lifespan of the bridge or they anticipated because of the saltwater intrusion that would be taking place. With routine maintenance, they anticipated that what I do recall is that the bridge had a significant lifespan left with routine maintenance. With the cantilever put on, even with the routine maintenance, they were concerned that that would significantly cut the lifespan of the bridge. We can check to gather that information for you and submit information back to you on that, but I
That's
just
okay.
recalled that there was
If-
significant
As long as that lifespan is significant, then it's not as important. I was just curious if it's short term, we'd love to have some input into what that new bridge would look like, but if it's not going to be for a while.
Well, when the bridge does get replaced, you definitely will have the opportunity to have input on what goes on, and the bridge at that point would also be considered for all the things that Chris was considering now for design. So pedestrians, bike paths, what we can put, the existing footprint that exists, those would all be topics that would be brought up. But I think I'm stealing a little bit of Chris's thunder on that.
Thank you for being here this morning. I appreciate it. And Amy, if we could get a hard copy of that proposal, that would be wonderful.
Paper pusher.
Anything else for Chris? Your presentation all wrapped up?
Yes, sir.
That's it? Well, appreciate you, Chris, and sorry, I forgot your first name.
Wayne.
That's Wayne.
Wayne, for coming out and sharing this, and thank you, Counselor King, for reaching out to them to have them come out. It's been a point where people are asking a lot of questions about when it's going to start, so it's nice to know the contract's been awarded and progress is going to start forward, and we're looking forward to seeing it when it's done.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Got a motion from Counselor King?
Second.
Second from Counselor Woodson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 12:21.